I can't believe I'm forced to dust off my Xbox. Something I haven't done in a long time. What's up, Black Raven? What's going on? Let's see what's going on in the world of Game Pass. First and foremost, I'm curious. I'm curious to see what's changed or what hasn't. Oh, that's actually coming sooner than I thought. Hey, I already have it on whatchamacallit. Train 3 Sim World. Interesting. Not. Can I just get all the games A to Z, please? Let's see, Age of Empires, Amnesia. See, they put shit on this on Game Pass, like this is supposed to still do something, and it's just not gonna do anything. So why is it still here? Like, you get rid of, they put some good stuff on every so often, but they need to get rid of this. Anthem has been up for a very long time. It will never come back. Just stop. Just stop. I know. I surprised myself. They got every dirt on here. Oh no, they only have Dirt 5, Dirt Rally 2.0. You know what? I want to know why they don't have Oblivion up. Isn't that funny? They got Morrowind, Skyrim, but they don't have Oblivion up on here. It's For Honor, but I don't play For Honor. Of course, they got Gears. Every Gears up. I want to know when Gears won Game of the Year. I'm actually curious as to how that plays, but nah. What is this? This is seriously a beta? Can I actually play it? If I install it, can I play it on? The gunk. That's because I never played Morrowind in front of you. They have every Mass Effect on here. They have Mech Warrior 5 Mercenaries. That's crazy. I really own 11? I didn't think I owned 11. There's a Peppa Pig game. Wow. Y'all have really lost your fucking minds now. Got Ninja Gaiden, Massacre. Oh, so Oblivion is on here. Never mind. Yeah, Shadow has a game dedicated specifically to her. Of course, they got Quake. That's not surprising. Scream Ride? Nah, I'm good. Shadowrun Dragonfall, yay. Stellaris. Huh. But there's nothing interesting still. Texas Chainsaw Massacre might be a thing. What's this looking like? What are we looking like? 21 gigs on this? Why not? Let's do it. GoldenEye is ready to play. Wow, that was super late, by the way. That was stupid late. Vampire Survivors. Trek to Yomi was okay. Wasn't all that great, though. Wasn't enough to hold my attention, I'll say that. Yeah, there's really not much in Game Pass. Let's see what's going on in the store. It's just been a while. Starfield, how much is that? That's 126 effing. Fuck, man. Fuck that. I mean, I have the gigabytes for it, but fuck. I already beat Lucky. I beat the hell out of Lucky. And then the kids played it for a little bit. Let's see the trending stuff. Could have swore this came out like some years ago. Or maybe I'm crazy. Oh, that's the old version. That's the old version. I don't like this new store design. Not gonna lie. I definitely don't like this new store design. This is fucking driving me up the wall. Trying to figure this shit out. Or am I crazy? Hold on, let's see. Open my dashboard, please. Wow, this is really gonna take like forever to install, isn't it? I could see it now. Okay, there's the store. Shit, I was about to say, what the fuck happened to the store? Games. Let's see, what do we have? Of course, Call of Duty is always gonna be at the top of this list. Apex. Destiny 2. Overwatch is, of course, I own Overwatch 2. Wait, did it just transfer from the old Overwatch? Okay, I'm tripping. Maybe I'm just tripping. Halo Infinite multiplayer, which is separate from the actual game for some reason. No One Leaves. What is this? When did this come out? 2019. I don't want something from 2019 at this point. I think I am good on that. Curse is okay. Hawken. Yeah. So there's a reason why I'm going through all this too. For one, it's been a while since I've actually been on my Xbox. I've said it before. I'll say it again. This thing has been collecting dust for well over a year. Holy crap, man. I own Village, don't I? Could have swore I owned Village. Know what I don't see on here? You know what's crazy? What I don't see on here? I don't see I don't see Street Fighter 6 on here. And maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I just need to scroll down this list a little bit more. Stray is garbage because it's very empty and very... Hey, I already got that. That's something I don't see on the PlayStation. What is this one? Oh, is it another one of these? Okay, I'm good on that. We let these we've let the industry get away with certain things for too long. Definitely let the industry get away with a lot of things for too long. What are you talking about? What are you looking at? What is it that you saw that I didn't see? Oh, is it this? Oh, I was supposed to be looking at it and I stopped looking at it, so my bad. Hold on. A game about living alone? Why are there pills being put into... Wow. Okay, yeah. Nah, I'm good. This is typical Xbox shit right here. Yeah, it's really not. I don't know. I don't see Street Fighter on here though. Hey, stay out of the house. Already did got that. Not playing it on this platform. There's the Phantasy Star Online add-on. Oh, they put this on. They put this on sale, 22% off. All right, hey, there's Street Fighter. There's Street Fighter. It's nuts to me that that's not popular on this console, but on PlayStation it's popular. Like, that shit is crazy to me. Like, I think that's one of those games that should be popular everywhere, not just on one spot. You know what I mean? I don't see anything even interesting. There's the Redfall for $79.99, but I can play it with Game Pass and not want to be. Yeah, I'm not. Nah, we're not doing that. That game never looked appealing to me. Like, I wouldn't even. If it, like, even putting it in front of me for free, I wouldn't even buy it. Cannon Dancer. Let's see what this is. Yeah, nah. We especially let Xbox get away with this stupid shit right here. And I'll kind of break that down a little bit. I'm not going to be on here too long today. My hand hurts from playing all that, from playing AC6. I'm at the end of that game. There's Resident Evil 4. Wow, see, and that shit is crazy to me. When I look at the numbers for ratings, and maybe it's just like not everybody rates stuff, right? But when I look at the ratings on here versus like PlayStation, like, it would seem like Sony ponies would like outnumber Xbox by like thousands. It's like Xbox is like made out to be like the sloppy seconds of everything in gaming. And that kind of sucks. Okay, there's that. Guilty Gear Strive. See, and nobody that on Xbox side is going to, hardly anybody on the Xbox side is going to appreciate the very fabric of that is Guilty Gear. Whereas, like, if you go to PlayStation or something, like, that game is looked at very highly for some reason. Hey, Remorse the List. I want to try this. I actually do want to try that. Here, let me see something. I'm going to add it to my wish list. There's really nothing that piques my interest when I look at this list. Why are we gasping? I want to see what this looks like on Xbox, because I already have it on Switch, but I never actually hooked my Xbox up to try this, and it's probably gonna look the same. I heard it looks the same. It looks the same. They heightened a few features here. But it looks the same. Can you play online? I don't think you can. But you could split screen the fuck out of this. Yeah, it's just the same fucking game. Boo! I don't know if this is even ready. Is this ready? It's close. Suspend. I get it. You're not gonna download anything because I'm playing a game. Real cute. Definitely gonna watch that later. Think I need to watch that later because I don't think I've ever watched that. So here's the deal. While that's doing that, I want to look up some stuff. This is the start of the dumbest conversations I've ever heard. This is absolutely the start of the dumbest conversations I've ever heard. So I want to play some stuff that is ultimately I want to play some stuff that is ultimately gonna show, it's gonna highlight both sides. It's not going to just highlight one side, because not just one side is stupid in all of this to me. So I'm curious to see what some of these other people have had to say and what other people have to say, and I don't know. It's just crazy. So let's go ahead and put this shit on.
Of course, remember, if our ship gets scanned with that in the ship, we are going to get arrested. and it will be taken away. However, what we do here is we take off. I know it's an incredibly 5,000 IQ maneuver. So we're gonna get up into the upper atmosphere again. After landing on the planet, dropping our artwork on the ground, and now we're about to get scanned. So, no contraband on ship. Wait for scan. They're scanning. They're scanning. Scan complete. Go ahead and land. There we go.
Okay,
Now
this
we
is
can land at the lodge. But before we do that,
this
we're gonna go to
is
the,
a live
landing
stream,
area.
so no, not at all. Let's look at this.
Salutations, everybody. It is.
I want to see if we can find somebody that's even remotely reasonable too. Like if we find people that are actually reasonable on the internet with this whole with the whole deal, then I mean, I guess my rant doesn't mean shit. And I mean, it's not that it really means shit anyway, but
Is Maddie here today? Let's talk about those Starfield reviews. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me make something perfectly clear. Starfield is sitting at, as I record this video, an 88 over on OpenCritic. That's across over 90 reviews. That's pretty dang good. This video is not designed to tear down other reviews, but really have a review discussion based off the game, and as someone who's put over 70 hours into it, how I'm seeing this range of scores. I fully expected Starfield to be a divisive title right once I got out the intro of this game. And you're playing it right now, so maybe you...
He's not lying when it comes to that, right? Because right now, as we speak, Twitter is going fucking crazy. And let me say this first and foremost, Twitter sucks. I don't know why anybody gets their fucking input from fucking Twitter when all it is a bunch of people that get high and fucking post fucking random fucking takes on shit that they have absolutely no fucking idea what they're talking about on there. Like, these are the same people that don't go out and get the facts. They'll look at the fucking headlines and fucking get offended at the fucking headlines before they even begin to read the fucking article. But already, as we see, it is very divisive. It is extremely... It's extremely divisive. Oh shit, my controller shit's slow. Anyway, it's extremely divisive with both sides sounding ridiculous. And I can't tell if on one side of the field it's a bunch of Sony ponies just trying to hate on the game, and on the other side it's just a bunch of Xbots trying to big the fucking game up or whatever. I can't tell the fucking difference anymore, because that's how much of a conversation is circulated around this game. I will give the takes of what I've seen on it, but I'm honestly not hyped. I will ultimately say that first and foremost. I'm not hyped. I don't give a fuck what either side says. I'm not hyped for this shit.
You even feel the same. Those first couple of hours just don't have the same BGS magic, and I think that threw a lot of people off. But I think there's a bigger conversation to have about the reviews surrounding Starfield. So before we get into the tips, tricks, guys, all that stuff, I wanted to have a conversation about, the 7 out of 10.
I do want to talk about reviews, especially talk about reviews and how we review games and things I've said in the past that, I don't know, like in my friends group, I've gotten looked at like I was fucking crazy for fucking saying. But these are sentiments that I have uttered before about how reviews are done. They are too fucking safe. So let's see what he says about reviewing.
10s getting tossed around. It's not to defend Bethesda, to protect them at all. I think there are legitimate issues with Starfield, and I broke them down in my impressions. If you missed them yesterday, you can go ahead and check them out.
So already he's got a reasonable fucking take. Like, he knows that there's stuff wrong with them. With this game, which ultimately I don't think you're ever going to get a game where you get where you get everything perfect. And I think watching what I've seen of it, you're getting what you're getting from a Bethesda game. So I mean, what more can you ask for? If you're excited for it, you're excited for it. If you're not, you're fucking not.
But I just want to have a conversation about this, because a lot of people were coming my way and saying, why so low? You think of Fallout 76 and where the standards really fell through the floor.
When did 7 become so low too? When did that become a thing? We're gonna look into that too.
Or for Bethesda, and it's like, why are we seeing 7s for a game with so much ambition and time and development Well, let me break all of that down, ladies and gentlemen. If you're new here and you're into Starfield news, information, conversation, tips, tricks, guides, all that fun stuff, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. And thank you so much for tuning in. There were a lot of Starfield reviews yesterday, and I'm honored that you tuned into my impressions on the game after 70 hours. So, ladies and gentlemen, right now, as I said, Starfield sitting at an 88 on OpenCritic with 94% recommending this game. I think that's all you need personally. You can move on, but there's a lot of fixation on a number of reviews. In particular, it's PC gamers who gave it a 75 out of 100. There's IGNs who I belly laughed when I saw this one, because when I was playing, I was thinking,
I'm actually surprised that IGN gave this game a 7. Like, this is one of those games I expected IGN to come out the gates like, there is nothing wrong with this game. It's a 10 out of 10. You should 100% buy it. It's 100% game of the year, because that's what IGN fucking does with games, especially the really, really bad ones. They love to take those games and they love to fucking they love to run with that and just try and push that game in your face. And and after they do a review on the game, they'll do like 50 billion other videos and articles on what makes this game so great, tips and tricks and shit. Meanwhile, there's the next game that comes out, and they'll fucking score that shit lower than what they get, and you're just sitting there baffled, like, what the fuck did you just do? Why did you rate this game like this? They've done this on several occasions.
thinking, yeah, this is going to be a divisive one. We're going to get a couple of outliers. And I thought to myself, imagine IGN gives it a 7. And here they are. They gave it a 7. They called it good, saying Starfield.
And they gave Baldur's Gate 10 out of 10, mind you. So what's going on over at IGN? What happens when a guy comes out, says he puts in 130 something odd hours into Baldur's Gate 3, says it's a 10, says it's a breath of fresh air, gives it a review, everybody praises him, and then we go into another reviewer and we see something like this. So what is the standard? What is the actual standard in the industry?
There's a lot of forces working against it, but eventually the allure of its expansive role-playing quests and respectable combat make its gravitational pull difficult to resist. Meanwhile, GameSpot gives it a 7 out of 10 as well, saying that it has intriguing side quests that lead you down some wild paths, solid gunplay and a fun arsenal of weapons make for thrilling firefights, an impressive breadth of content and interconnected gameplay systems, and trekking the galaxy and discovering planets is novel. While the bad is the uninspired main story with weak writing and characterizations, underwhelming vision of space exploration and humanity's spacefaring future, shallow RPG mechanics with regard to...
This is the second time I've heard this, by the way, where it just, but like IGN said it, where it just feels like it just feels empty, and then like this article says like it's just uninspired, weak with underwhelming visions of space exploration. And you want to know something? I'm not fucking surprised by it. You can't make a game this big and then expect them to be able to put everything that you want to see into it. It's just not possible. If there's about over 1,000, there's about 1,000 planets in it. If there's 1,000 planets, how long do you think this game would have taken to come out then? Then you'd really be mad, because then you would have been waiting another 10 years just to see everything that they were going to develop on within the game itself, as far as like everything on each individual planet. The fact that they managed to get as many planets as they did in here is a fucking surprise to me. Now, the one thing I can say for sure, which would make this game even greater, is if they put more fucking attention on that. Well, they got to do Elder Scrolls 6, obviously, but if they would have put more attention on over the years, developing further and further and further, keeping up with it while they developed other stuff. If they had like a specific team put onto this game to develop for planets and stuff, to make add-ons and stuff, I think that would be amazing. I think that would be better than and this might be my hot take for the day, but it would be better than Elder Scrolls Online, to be honest. I think this is where you start to this is a game worth maintaining.
through dialogue, quest solutions, and
if you're gonna make it in the same light as like a Destiny and a No Man's Sky combined with like Fallout.
Influencing outcomes and terrible map systems make key locations tough to navigate. These are all people's opinions. Take them or leave them. Treat them like you treat.
That navigation part is true. That looks very inconvenient. Taking out the mini map, just to replace it with a planetary map and a take a planetary map, and enter in a galactic map. Like that's just nuts. Like the navigation in there does look very bad. Now, if you don't have a problem with it, then you just don't have a problem with it. But to me, it looks very, very inconvenient.
Me right. A lot of you have been very respectable about my takes in the past, so I don't think just because of the
Wait, why? What am I taking back?
We got a dog pile. Where I want to start the conversation, the main reason I wanted to talk about this is I actually feel bad for the press with this one. I truly do. I am lucky as a YouTube reviewer to be able to call the shots on when I want to drop my review. I can drop it day one with the embargo, which, yeah, no doubt is best for business, if you will. Like, if you want the maximum amount of viewers, you want to be there when everyone's searching up the game that is having the embargo lift that day. However, because I can call my own shots, I can say, you know what, let me do Starfield impressions, and then I'll do a final review when I've seen all the faction quest lines through, and I feel like I've put enough time into the game. IGN, GameSpot, you think they're going to miss Starfield day one and say, yo, here are our impressions, we'll catch you later? They've done review and progresses in the past for more multiplayer-centric games where the servers aren't live, and hey, we'll...
Yes, better than Elder Scrolls Online. Because I don't know what the hell they're doing with it, but man, like... whatever efforts they put into that, they need to put into this. Because for as many... say what you want. I'm gonna say what I saw. And you can tell me if I'm wrong or not. Graphically, it looks alright. It looks fine. There are mechanics that I would work on for sure that aren't very convenient. Like I said, that map thing is that looks very irritating. I don't like the fact that they try to go for as much realism as possible. Now, I don't know how interstellar travel works, so I'm not going to speak on that, but damn, to get to a planet takes for fucking ever. That's a No Man's Sky fucking take. They really go for that realism. And I think we need to look at, like, what is our obsession with bringing real life into the video game industry. I think we really need to look at that. Because I would get, like, part of it, like, we're not able to do that in real life right now, so why not just immerse ourselves into the imagination? And if that's it, then man, like, you're in for a hell of a ride when it comes to for the next games to come out. And you wonder why people get, it's like you gotta wonder, why are you so mad if you're looking for realism in a game and the actual devs are trying to bring you that realism? It doesn't make sense to be mad about. It takes time to do that. But for a game like this with I think they said it was 1,000 planets. Like, I do think that over time they should continue to put in maintenance over time, keep it intriguing, keep it interesting, build off of certain planets. Like, maybe certain settlements have built certain things over time. Put the love and effort that you put into Elder Scrolls into this, and you got something. That's just what I think. I don't think it's right now. You get what you get from Bethesda. That's what you get. And it's either going to be a great experience or it's going to be a bad one. It just depends on the person. Like, this is not going to be everybody's bag.
Bring our verdict out later. But when it comes to the biggest game from Xbox this year, with so much traffic being generated by it, There's no way the editor-in-chief is going to sit there and say, you don't have a verdict for this thing? How long you been playing? You got 2 weeks? Yeah, you're going to have a verdict for me. Granted,
I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for the fucking publications, though. I'm not going to sit here and feel bad for the journals in this one on anything. Not when they've had... I'm not going to feel sorry for them because for too long, they have had far too much fucking control over the games industry as a whole, as far as what narratives get pushed, what agendas they decide to fucking push when they decide to make hit pieces on certain games. Like, they've controlled the standard for what rating a fucking game is, and then we take it as the players and the consumers, and we run with that shit like it's fucking law. So I don't feel sorry for them. If they chose that path and the actual publications are that bored that they would allow that shit to happen, and they want to play the safe route, and they want to sit there and not give honest takes about fucking games that have been terrible over the fucking years, that you think I'm supposed to feel sorry for that? No. Fuck no. Fuck them.
I'm looking from the outside in, but I say this as someone who kind of feels bad for the process there. They got to put a score in. And I say all of that because as someone I watched both reviews.
They don't have to do shit. There are people that have come from IGN and come from all these other places that go on YouTube and can do their own fucking thing. They are more than capable of doing these things. And actually, I'd argue that people on YouTube are more successful doing this on their own than they are working for a publication, which is crazy to think about, right?
Reviews from IGN and GameSpot, and I went through PC Gamers as someone who had more hours than most of these reviewers logged in, and I said, yo, I feel like I haven't scratched the surface. I really cannot comfortably put a final say on, do I really like the game? Yeah. Do I find it quite flawed? In many ways, yes. But when I imagine myself saying for sure, like, this is my definitive say, like they had to when I think GameSpot had 55 hours logged, I could never. And that's why I feel bad, because I feel like they become a victim of the review process. And that's...
Fuck that shit. If they were a victim, get the fuck out. It is that fucking simple. When did we get to the point where we don't think we have any control whatsoever over what it is the rules are? They can do that in streaming, in the world of streaming. Why can't we do that in this fucking part? A victim.
That's what's really happened here. Not that their scores would be higher or maybe even lower. It's not to say that you shouldn't accept their verdict at all or their legitimate criticisms of the game. Because in fact, some of the things that they said, I would agree with. Now, do I disagree with GameSpot and say their take on the main story? 100%. You saw in my impressions, I'm like, play that thing first, mainline it even. I thought it was that good. Meanwhile, they say here it's uninspired with weak writing and characterizations. I don't really see that at all, but to each their own, right? That's nothing to really lose your mind over. And especially with Game Pass, I'm kind of disappointed seeing so many people go like, oh my god, the 7's. Like, the beauty of Game Pass is you can see a 7 and go, okay, well, at least I can try it out for myself and see if it's worth it. And would I give Starfield a 7? Absolutely not, but that's also why I don't do number scores, because I think it just conflates the overall critiques.
Thank you. It's too fucking safe. It gives you way too much. There's way too much leeway for fucking mistakes. That gives them way too many leeway to make fucking mistakes in a review, and you're actually getting to see it in real fucking time. So people are having to take back, what is it, Alana Pierce had to fucking take back what she said about interstellar travel. Like, you're getting to see it, man. Like, what is a rating system? What is the rating system, and how do we make it so that it's not as safe as it is, and you can get the honest truth out? You can actually be objective with your if it's less safe, you can actually be objective with how you review stuff.
Across the board, everyone's reviews for Starfield were pretty long. Like IGN, I noticed it's in that like 7 to 8 minute pocket. Like they pushed 10 plus minutes. GameSpot pushed 10 plus minutes. Like all these reviews, mine was impressions and it was 30 plus minutes. I think ACG was pushing 30 minutes.
That's because it's a big ass game.
And I know Lone Vault Wanderer was pushing 40. Like,
I will never fucking review this game. Not like that. not in a traditional sense.
It's a big game. There's a lot to take in, a lot to break down. It is a seismic project, and that's why I say, again, it goes back to, I kind of feel bad about the process here, because I look at how many hours they logged in, and I'm like, I could never imagine putting a final say on it. That's, again, not to undermine their opinion, but just to kind of put into perspective the situation some reviewers are in. We're spoiled this year. That's all there is to it. The fact that we're looking at a game that has an 88 on OpenCritic going,
this year we've been spoiled, man. No fucking way we haven't been spoiled. Like, we've been spoiled for a long time. And then when you bring out a bunch of games like what you got this year, oh my god, this is getting on my nerves. When you bring out a bunch of games that have come out, as many games that have come out this year that have been so great, and then you get hit with this, it's like, this was just bad timing. Let's just be real. Like, this was just really bad timing. I think this should have led the year in. I think if this game would have, if this game leads everything else, the conversations are much different. But they couldn't lead it in. Why? Because they had to push it back. They pushed it back just to even be able to make it, to even be able to make it what it is now. And these are things that most people would have been mad about. But see, we did the same thing with CDPR, like when it came to Cyberpunk. Got mad because they were pushing it back, rushed them. Then you got a bullshit project, and then you're mad at them anyway. So it's just like, well, where's the win at? Where's the win for anybody? We have been spoiled. What are we talking about here?
Yo, what? Are you kidding me, Bethesda? That's not good. That's how good this year has been. Truly. And that's not to make excuses for Bethesda. You know, this is a year with so many 9 and 10 out of 10 games, from Octopath Traveler to Dead Space Remake to Resident Evil 4 Remake to Tears of the Kingdom, Street Fighter 6. Like, every genre is thriving this year. Baldur's Gate 3 being absolutely incredible. Sea of Stars from Sabotage, the team that brought us the Fantastic Messenger, just sneaking up and saying, yo, here's a 95 out of 100 for y'all. Like, yeah, it's a really dang good year. And it took me a while to turn the corner because of like PC ports and stuff. Like, I love Star Wars Jedi Survivor, but yeah, like when you look at the port experience there, it's hard to give it a lot of love. But there's, even amidst all of that, there's still greatness. I know we don't want to hear that the biggest game of the generation for Xbox, no doubt about it, is a game that comes with a couple of bumps in the road, or space, whichever way you want to put it. When I say that, I mean stuff like the lots of fast travel. I think eventually this game, and Gene Park said this on Defining Duke, so this isn't my own thoughts, but I think it's very accurate. I think eventually Starfield will be called fast travel the game. There's very little space travel, like GameSpot and IGN said. It's very much opening up your quest menu, pressing set course, which is the X button. It zips you to the exact planet, fast travel spot.
Yeah.
And you just go. And that's how most of your travel in the game is done. And I know many people weren't expecting No Man's Sky, but like, that is a legitimate break in the experience that happens super often. Like, Starfield does not have the BGS rhythm that you've come to know and love. And it's something that I personally had an issue with. Now, where things differ,
the issue, but there's the loss though, because with a game this big, if you don't have that kind of interstellar travel, then what are you doing? Like, you're just playing a game where you're just gliding through space, and that's it. Like, that's all you're doing. Oh, I'm supposed to close this? Oh, dope. I like that. Anyway,
is I viewed Starfield as this steady upward crescendo. It was inclining the whole time, and for a while I kind of wasn't realizing it until I got into the main story. Things started to come together. That's the other thing. The game's so big, I think everyone's experience, everyone's verdict is going to differ, and that's because the biggest problem I had with Starfield is I think there is a right way to play it, which wasn't the case with their past games. They had too much structure and too much focus in a particular avenue that I think can define a lot of your experience. I feel kind of lucky that I fell into the main story after just 20 hours. Obviously, this was not the case with GameSpot, where they said very much like, hey, I didn't think the main story was good, and they talked about New Game Plus and whatnot, and so they got to the end where I think, yeah, some people it just won't resonate. But there were ones like IGN who talked about how, oh, the beginning was so rough, and it managed to claw its way out, and they gave it a 7. So I'm thinking, if you thought it was rough in the beginning, were we thinking 4 or 5 at that point in time? Because the same reviewer who did Starfield was the one who originally gave Prey a 4 out of 10, which is insane, right? So again, not to go after people's opinions, but this goes to show that Starfield is, I think, a strong experience. Everyone ends up coming out liking it, but to varying degrees. That's why I said I can't really tell you I love the game so much right now, because there's so much yet to be seen. And I think when you get into New Game Plus, it's going to dramatically change your impressions of the game again, because it is that unique and novel and adds a lot of replay value. It kind of redefines that replay value. So there's something there where, again, it goes back to if you've put even close to 100 hours into the game, you can definitely call it a review, because at the end of the day, do you trust your gut? Is this what you're going to live and die by? Then okay, put your verdict out there. But there are reviewers who are putting in a respectable amount of hours, no doubt, across 2 weeks. But when it comes to a game as big as Starfield, I mean, it's almost like the game was too big. And I think it's interesting because Halo Infinite was a game that I got about a month early. I remember when I first got it, immediately my reviewer brain like flipped this switch of, oh my God, I'm scared, because I thought the game was going to be huge. And when I beat it in 10 hours and then did most of the side content afterwards, I was stunned. I was like, what? They gave us a month with this game? I was able to chill, let my opinions marinate for weeks afterwards. I could not believe it. Something like Starfield, I hate to say it, I'm very grateful I got it 2 weeks early. I'm sure many people out there would love to get it 2 weeks early too. But as a content creator, as a reviewer, I would almost say 2 weeks is not enough. That's how much content was packed into the game. That's how much there is to see. And of course now, like I said, you're all playing it, so the conversation can extend to the most important part, which is you. Like, what I'm saying or what reviewers are saying ultimately doesn't matter. And I've always said this, but especially when the biggest amount of traffic we're getting on the channel right now is here, it's worth saying again, is that with Game Pass, all that matters is your verdict, because if you're subscribed, you just get to sign up and try. And that's all there is to it. The problem is with that slow beginning, it's the worst time for Bethesda to have that happen, because people are going to start it up, you know, it's a couple of hours in, and you're like, and that's where the uninstalls hit. Now, I think Starfield offers far more that's worthwhile, where even in its worst stages, I wasn't having as much fun as a previous BGS game, but I was still having a good enough time to keep going. I wouldn't say it was absolutely rotten to its core. And so for Starfield to get an 88 and people are losing their minds that a couple of 7s are out there, speaks to not only the hype of the game, which I totally understand. People want this to be good. There was anxiety about it being good. I've read my comments in my Twitter threads. Trust me, I see it all. And yeah, I know there was a lot of anticipation, but the reality is this. Just because 3 people did not like it online does not take away your joy. That's the most important thing to take away from this. I don't mean to get philosophical, but if you fire this game up and you have fun, who cares what Joe Schmo said online? Who cares?
Exactly. Like, too many people rely on these publications to give them that show them a way and to show them what game is actually popular and what's not. I think that's a lot of what Sony Ponies and Xbox problem is that they just rely way too much on the understandings of people who don't even lead you to anything, anywhere good in the industry. Oh, hey, look at you. So, I don't know, man. Like, it's just... I really wish I could run in this game. Where did they go? I don't know where they went. Here, I'm gonna show y'all what I'm playing real quick. That's a better idea, huh? I lost them. I can't believe it. But yeah, play whatever you want. That's what it should be. That's how things should be. Is play what you want. And it's just like not enough people have that particular mindset to actually think along those lines.
Here's what Maddie has to say. Who cares what any of us have to say? It's about your fun. I've moved past this point in my life where for a while, remember, I was very hesitant for sometimes to really get excited about Bethesda stuff because I got really burned by my Fallout 4 review. I was really young, and so, you know, my brain was not really processing it as well as it should have, and I wasn't digesting it in a healthy way, and I was letting it harm my joy. And eventually I just had this moment of you know what? Like, if I like something, people want to hear that. And I want to share that joy with others, which is the thing I think we can all relate to. When you find a great game and have that water cooler moment, and you can share it with someone. Starfield's full of that. Where if your friend's playing it and you're playing it, you'll see if you watch Defining Duke, when myself, Gene, and Cog talk about Starfield, we're all just sitting there sharing experiences, very light on spoilers, by the way, and having completely different outcomes to stuff and learning brand new things about the game. It's awesome in that sense. And so don't let a couple of reviewers who you think are just absolutely in the wrong ruin your good time, and don't go ruining their good time, right? Like, let them share their opinion just like you would with anyone else out there. I know it's a little idealistic here on the internet to say all that, but I think we can do a better job still. And I think the Starfield discourse, I anticipate being divisive with the console war.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the problem. We need to end that finally. We need to find a way to end the console wars completely, or not completely, but at least like shut a lot of both sides up. I think this is definitely going to open the eyes of a lot of people. This is going to shed light on a lot of what's actually going on in the industry, rather than just assuming based off of what somebody writes. I think that this is going to do a lot. Like, Starfield is going to get a lot of people talking, especially with all of the games that have come out this year. Like, there's no denying this year has been amazing when it comes to the games industry, right? It's the most amazing we've seen in a long time. And now that we have all these games, like I said, if Starfield leads the year, then we're not having this conversation. But it didn't. And the truth of the matter is because it didn't, now we're being forced to look at, now we're being forced to actually look at what is deemed as a good game and what isn't deemed as a good game. And I think when we start to see reviews like what you've seen with Starfield, for instance, or maybe what you've seen with Baldur's Gate, it just seems like it really looks like it is what it looks like. Trust me when I say that these journos, they're not journoing. They're not doing their job. They're totally not doing their job. They're pushing narratives. They're making things look a certain way. They're making hit pieces on games that they shouldn't be making hit pieces on. Oh my goodness, you seriously. He just ran right behind you. Or at least everyone's settled down and play their own games. Exactly. That's how it should be, right? That's exactly how it should be. I think she went over here. I don't even know what the objective is besides to kill these people.
If you don't stop with the runaround, I'm gonna feed your giblets to Grandpa.
Interesting. She had to run out this way. I don't know. But we're gonna see a lot of things. I know there's gonna be some very unreasonable videos. Like, this is probably one of the most reasonable ones. I always stumble upon the reason. I'll be looking for like really bad takes, and I end up stumbling across like.
Grandpa was still able. This would have been long over by now. Didn't have much choice.
Let's see.
Johnny's bring no love child round here. This ain't
Let's see what IGN
All right,
has to
everybody,
say.
strap yourselves in. This is going to be a bumpy ride.
Shields ready.
I feel like I'm the kind of person Starfield was made for. I loved Bethesda's last single-player
Hey.
RPG, Fallout 4, maybe a bit too much.
This guy is the topic of everybody's conversation right now. Dan Stapleton. Apparently he is responsible for a lot of bad reviews. Or not a lot of bad reviews, but definitely not so hot takes, or not so great takes when it comes to the games industry, right? He's definitely one of those people that tries to he definitely tries to push that narrative, especially like with what was the latest one, the early access, where it's looked at as being poor if you get early access to something. Like, it's like, who said anything about that? Like, where do you hear this stuff at? Now, I don't want to discredit him and say that there aren't people that say crazy shit like that, but but where do you get off actually making those kinds of takes, if that makes sense? Let's see.
There's nothing I like more than a sci-fi universe with spaceships, lasers, and political intrigue flying every which way.
You have my agreement.
And yet, a dozen hours in, I was feeling lost in space. Things never went too far off course while I was flying my rinky-dink little ship around, chasing down mysterious artifacts and war criminals with a damn fine crew of companions at my side. But man, did Starfield make me work hard to get through that opening stretch.
You know, most Dusties don't even make it this far.
Even when it mostly righted the ship and I was loving the story, side quests, and launching boarding parties on enemy ships, there were still too many problems that constantly popped up, forcing me to curb my excitement. It's a bit like Starfield's own elaborate shipbuilder tool. Even though you can slap together a bunch of high-end parts and it will technically fly, sometimes it's just not the best fit. I'd expect no less, but Bethesda has built out a sprawling universe with detailed lore. I wouldn't call it especially distinctive. It's reminiscent of universes like The Expanse and Firefly, and full of references to every sci-fi movie from Aliens to Blade Runner, and of course Interstellar. In fact, there's a significant similarity to what Obsidian created for 2019's The Outer Worlds. But the story of how humans abandoned Earth and colonized the stars is so densely packed in, with more around every corner, that I found it easy to get invested in.
We're all here because we're committed to exploring space.
Once I learned the difference between the United Colonies and the Freestar Collective.
The United Colonies strove to provide all their citizens with opportunity, security, and peace.
Regardless of which background option and starting skills you pick for your character, everyone starts out in the same mining camp and touches the same space magic that sets off a trippy 2001 A Space Odyssey style vision. But after that, Starfield is an immense game that will send you off in all kinds of different directions once it hands you the keys to your first spaceship. It's to the point where talking to others who have played alongside me has left us all bewildered.
Wait, what do you mean you don't know who the Vanguard are?
Wow, you didn't unlock that until level 20?
You met who in a bar? Your new best friend on Neon.
You can easily fall down all sorts of wormholes into extended chains of missions that take you on adventures that rival Skyrim's in scope. Even after about 70 hours, there are major quest lines I haven't even touched, and others I've left unfinished. I'm eager to go back and pick those up now that I've completed the main story.
You know there's more to come.
In typical Bethesda fashion, that main quest itself isn't terribly flexible in how you can resolve the situations it thrusts you into. Your options here are, for the most part, about picking whether you want to be a Boy Scout for whom a good deed is its own reward, a wisecracking mercenary who asks to be rewarded after doing a good deed, or an all-business mercenary who demands to be paid up front to do said good deed.
I'll say right up front that if you're looking to get rich, this ain't the line of work for you.
There are a few life and death choices, and there's a decision at the end about which philosophy to embrace before heading into the final battle. But most of it is going to play out the same way because, no matter what, your goal is to solve the mystery of those artifacts alongside your secret society of explorers known as Constellation. I won't say much about where the plot goes because it's way too easy to spoil, but I did enjoy the way it probed its biggest concept in distinctive ways. And there's plenty of well-written discussion about what it all means.
Get out of here, Dusty. You're on to bigger things.
It's in the side quests that you really get to act out your character's morals and choose to resolve conflicts peacefully or just by killing and robbing innocent people. There's just...
Okay, that all sounds reasonable. What the hell?
It's a bit of a letdown every single time. The next nuisance that irritated me no matter where I roamed is the fact that there are no actual maps, mini or otherwise. This screen is just not helpful at all. I spent way too much time searching for basic things like vendors to sell my loot to while I tried to memorize.
Which, again, we've already established they took that out just to create two other maps that aren't very easy to get to. So I don't know what the issue is as far as that goes, I guess. I don't know. What the hell? What is even happening right now? What is Leatherface doing? Did we kill everybody? We killed everybody? Huh. I had a decent score. I didn't kill anybody, but definitely got a good score. But yeah, the minimap, I could see that being an issue for some people. I don't think that would be an issue for everybody though. And I think that once we start touching down on what actually I think once this game actually is available to everybody, we'll get a little bit of everything combined to find out what it is that people actually find appealing about this game and what people actually don't find appealing about this game. And this game right here that I'm playing is actually really pretty good. I need a solid group of friends to play just as usual, but who's playing on Xbox? So let's go home. Do I have messages for real? Oh, this is like way, yeah, this is old. I haven't played in this in a long time. Let me see. What is this? Yeah, no, I'm good on that. Let's see what else he's
Memorize the
got to
layout
say.
of multiple settlements, and I expect most people will just look up community-made maps like the ones that IGN's guide team is working on anyway. Also, like Bethesda's previous RPGs, Starfield's playtime is roughly 30% inventory management, and yet it's shockingly bad at that task. You'll constantly need to transfer loot between your inventory and your companions or to and from your ship's cargo hold, but maddeningly you can't view both at the same time like you can in Fallout 4 and Skyrim. Modders, if you're listening, please help. Those problems never got better during my playthrough. I just learned to live with them. The hump that I did work my way over, though, is that Starfield doesn't tell you enough about how its huge collection of systems work, and it trickles out the cool stuff too slowly. Out of the gate, you can't mod your equipment, you can't use your essential boost pack, and you can barely use stealth or board enemy ships at all. You can build outposts that are a lot like Fallout 4's settlements, but it doesn't tell you that you probably shouldn't bother with them early on because you don't need huge quantities of a single resource until way later. Speaking of, storage space on the first tier of ships is obnoxiously small for the amount of loot and resources you gather. I resorted to silly workarounds like throwing stuff on the floor of my ship like a space hoarder.
What can I help you with?
Eventually though, all that stuff gets resolved through upgrades and learning the ropes. It's also worth—
See, and here's one thing that you have to take into account whenever reviewing something, is that not everybody's play style is going to be the same as yours. Yeah, you may encounter the same things, like maybe a slow building story, which obviously with as big as this game, I would expect no less, that you have to have such a slow building story to have created a world, to have created such something that is so immersive. You can't just have a storyline that just draws you in, right? And the same thing with the mechanics, like but with mechanic wise, everything is going to be different. Everybody's going to use the mechanics different. That's why when you go on YouTube and you watch how like people play in different games, you'll never find the same play style. You'll always find something different. Like AC6 is a really good example of this. Actually, I'd say any From Software game is a really good example of this, of like how different it is that we are when it comes to everybody's play style. So when it comes to like this, for instance, somebody else might, what he was just saying about like having to, what did he say, he had to like drop all his shit for that, like that may not be an issue for somebody else though, because they have they have the ability to think beyond whatever it is that maybe I'm thinking of or maybe this guy is thinking of in order to do it. I think he did just complain that he board enemy ships. But if that's the case, somebody else could, and you know then it doesn't really matter what he has to say, because somebody else is going to be playing this game at a much faster pace, maybe at a much better, maybe at a better pace, maybe at a worse pace than him. It's something that people don't really take into account whenever they do reviews. And so like that's why like whenever if you look at any of the reviews that I've ever done, I've never done a number system, because of the simple fact that it like, why am I gonna play it so safe to where I can't be honest, to where I can't actually make a suggestion? Because the other key that people don't realize when it comes to reviewing games is that your objective is not to push the game into their face. It is to make it a suggestion and make a case for that suggestion that actually sticks, so that when a person looks at the review, they can actually make a determining factor of whether or not they want to be able to play the game or not. Not to sit there and say, well, this game is absolutely horrible. Here's a 7, here's a 6, here's a 5, here's a 10 because it's absolutely amazing, and then it turns out that it's actually not the game that it's actually not as great or bad as they said it was. I think this is where we get too safe in this numbers game, because if I give it a 7, then and it shows by how we look at how games are rated. This actually shows, if I give a game an 80 on Metacritic, that is automatically bad right now as we speak. But that means that every game that you ever played that was good, that was in the 80s, would have to be bad then too. You have to look at it logically from that perspective of how safe that the industry is actually put it. We're at a point now where we can't even give actual reviews out of fear that they're gonna get hit. Like they genuinely cannot give honest reviews because they're afraid that they're going to get hit by the corporations that make the games in itself. They're going to get hit by the publishers. That's where this all began at, right there. And so now we have these safe metrics, whereas if I say the suggestions that I have are going to be if this game is really great, then I'll say I'll suggest immediate purchase. If I say that this game is okay, needs some work, I would recommend purchase later. Or if I say this game is absolute shit, then just don't even bother with it. I mean, it's suggestive. It is not meant for me to sit here and tell you what you do with your money. And that is the narrative that has been driven by journals as a whole, which is, if a game is this high, it must be this great, and you must get it. That is the standard that we have set, that has been set in the gaming industry. And for too long, the journals have been able to control that fucking narrative, or they've been a part of the reason why that narrative gets controlled. Playstyle is definitely a factor. Games like this that can have different playstyles should have people that play games in those style reviewed, then so multiple people should be able to review these games to reflect. And I think they honestly should have a team of fucking people to do these types of games. The last dude that we watched sat there and said that this game is so big that he did a 30-minute impressions video alone. Do you know how long it took? When I did the Dark Souls trilogy review, that was almost an hour video. That took me a fucking month to do. And that's just recording the videos, that's studying the videos. They don't get enough time because these guys, because they're so busy trying to keep up. Leave it to the YouTubers at this point, because and I'm not saying every YouTuber, but leave it to the people that can actually handle it, that actually stay on top of things, because you're trying to cover so many different aspects. Have we looked at IGN lately? They're not even just covering games anymore. That's how bored they are. They're covering stuff that's happening in space. They're covering all kinds of scientific shit, and it's just that's not what IGN was originally. or at least as far as I knew, it wasn't like that. They're covering so many different things, and then when it comes back to getting back to the games, it's really hard for them to keep up for some reason. And I don't understand why. I can understand why this year, but for the past 10 years, it should have been easy as pie to be able to keep up with a lot of the stuff that they do, and with the games that have actually come out, because there hasn't really been that many in the AAA space. If that's all you're gonna hype up, is the AAA space. So it's just like there's things that, and he said it himself in this video, that you're gonna encounter a lot of things. That's the crazy part. He contradicts himself so hard. Is that he said that you're gonna encounter a lot of things, that when you're talking amongst your friends, you're gonna hear something different from your friends that play this game. He said that himself, and even put in the simulated fucking voices to add on the theatrics to this bullshit.
Worth noting that the worlds you explore are generally visually different with varying gravity, but they're barren and lifeless aside from the crafted areas you visit in quests. I mean, yeah, you'd expect that from planets that are mostly untouched by intelligent beings, but that doesn't make them a lot more fun to run around. Outside of a handful of random...
That's why you're supposed to build it. You're actually supposed to build, which is why this game isn't attractive to me, because I don't want to fucking do a job on a fucking game when I'm here to have fun. If I were to play this, it would just specifically be for the story, but I don't even know how long the story is. But I expected that. I said it earlier, if they had taken the time to put all the things they possibly could have put on all of these planets that they have, like, you would have never seen this game come out. It would have been another, like, maybe 10 years. And not to mention, people are looking for Elder Scrolls 6. Like, that's not enough time to do that and work on Elder Scrolls 6 at the same time. However, like I said before, if they use this game, if they put the love into this game that they do into Elder Scrolls or Elder Scrolls Online, you have something. You genuinely have something. 1,000 planets. That tells me that you can put so much effort. That's so much DLC that you could put into this fucking game. You can even make some online aspects to this. There's so many possibilities that they could do. My problem is that I don't believe that they will do it.
Generated outpost full of enemies to raid. All there is to do is scan trees and rocks or zap them with a mining laser.
We just love rocks.
Or sometimes scan and maybe shoot alien wildlife.
So it's 40 hours? Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if I have the patience for that in this, to be honest.
It's a far cry from Bethesda's previous games, where you could barely swing a dead mud crab without hitting something cool. And it took a while for me to learn that I could largely just ignore this stuff. There's one part of the main quest that's pretty repetitive too. You're sent to investigate a series of ancient structures, and it's annoying that what you do inside of each...
Hey, what did I say before? This game is going to be repetitive. Hey, guess what? That's the same thing you will get from every open world game. And it is your choice of whether or not you want to play that. If you enjoy that kind of shit, then enjoy it. That's as simple as that. Like, this is what I was talking about when I said, like, we complained a lot when it came to like Legions. By the time Legions came out, people were just tired of like the repetitive stuff. But what about games like, that's why if people would have had the patience for CDPR's Cyberpunk, man, like these conversations would be much different. I just think we have been given way too many liberties to as not only just as the public, but as like publications, to just say what the fuck we want without realizing the implications of what we say actually actually giving us trouble back.
One is
but that is an open world genre. It is extremely rare that you will find an open world where you can do a lot of different things. And I mean a lot of different things, not just the same wash, rinse, repeat fucking missions. Go invade this, take over this, do this. Like it's like the whole Assassin's Creed deal, or what is it, Wildlands, I think it was. What was it, Ghost Recon, I think it was, where everything is just repetitive. Like, you're gonna find that in open world. It is absolutely difficult to create a world this big and have 50 trillion different things to do on each world. I just think that they should build on it over time when this comes out. I think they should. I don't think they will, but I think they should.
Completely identical. The rewards are different and enticing enough for me to want to chase them all down at least. But after the first few, I couldn't help but wish that Bethesda's designers had taken some inspiration from Breath of the Wild when it came to creating different puzzles for each one.
Breath of the Wild is a different case. It's a different story. Breath of the Wild doesn't have as much in it. And when you don't put as much in it, this is why I say like quantity does not equal quality. When you make something big, you have to think about what it is that you're making. And the fact that you didn't realize that before you decided to take this on is on you personally. Breath of the Wild, though, or Tears of the Kingdom is what he should have said, because Tears of the Kingdom is a greater version of Breath of the Wild. He should have said Tears of the King. Did he say Tears of the King? I might be wrong. Hold on, let me see. Did he say it?
Enough for me to want to chase them all down at least. But after the first few, I couldn't help but wish that Bethesda's designers had taken some inspiration from Breath of the Wild when it came to creating different puzzles for each one.
Then what was your complaint? Then whoa. Why did you rate Legion so high then? Because Legions is basically a repetitious fucking game that feels like a job. This game is going to feel like a job to some people. And to some people, it's not going to feel that way. What did you expect? Obviously, you're one of the people that it feels that way for.
So it wasn't until about a dozen hours in that I unlocked enough upgrades that the gameplay started to gel for me alongside the story. Starfield absolutely is one of those games that takes way too long to get to the good part. But the fact that it eventually did get its claws into me forced me to jettison all of the more like Starfield jokes I'd been workshopping out the airlock and focus more on what this sci-fi epic gets right, or at least does well enough. Filed under does well enough is combat, which is the solution to most problems unless you're extremely dedicated to the idea of talking or sneaking your way past most encounters with hostile pirates, robots, and wildlife, and anything.
I'm trying to think of, because I was watching this and I don't know what the combat reminds me of. It reminds me of something I cannot think of it. Like, it looks so loose and yet so smooth at the same time. It reminds me of something and I don't fucking remember.
Thing that looks at you funny.
But I'm sure somebody's gonna tell me at some point what it reminds me, what they think it might remind me of.
It's not bad, and it's kept me happily plinking away with my tricked out laser rifles and shotguns, but it's not especially great.
I will say that while this does look like Destiny type shit, it looks smoother than Destiny, and I wish Destiny could learn a thing or two from the combat system at least.
Either.
Dishonored based combat, maybe there's another. It's a shooter. It's another shooter that I cannot think of without the powers. I don't know. That's I don't. Maybe
without anything new and exciting to fill the void left by Fallout's time-stopping bat system, it's pretty standard stuff. To their credit, enemies do react in fun ways, and sometimes they'll flee if you killed off their friends. Plus, the modifiers on epic and legendary weapons and gear have some fun stuff going on that's not afraid to be game-changing. I found a rifle that does more damage as my health decreases, and makes enemies more likely.
Nah, Borderlands, not Borderlands, definitely not Borderlands. It's something else though. It's definitely a game I've trashed in the past before.
To drop med packs.
And that's not to say that it's actually trash. It's just when people play this in third person, it just reminds me of that fucking game for some reason.
I found a spacesuit,
and I cannot think of what it is for the life of me.
That has a 10% chance to set nearby attackers on fire and made me invisible when I crouched and held still. That's kind of cool, and there's a lot more where that came from. The other side of combat is ship-to-ship battles, which are also fairly...
If you have never played Star Wars Squadron, you are probably never going to get you are not going to master this right off the bat.
Simple as...
Or any kind of game where that involves shooting in space for that matter. If you've never played anything like that, like combat for this looks like you will... Space fighting and planetary fighting are two totally different things.
space dogfighting games go. It's never not entertaining to blast away at pirates and watch the pretty explosions.
Thank you. That's what it is. Thank you. That's what it is. PUBG. Thank you.
There's some basic...
Could not think of it. It's like, that's what the third person in this game reminds me of, is PUBG. By the movements. It's not to say it is PUBG. It just reminds me a little bit. The movements kind of remind me of it a little bit.
Power management, but I rarely felt the need to fiddle with it in combat because most of the ships I bought or found had enough power to go around. The closest thing to VATS you get in Starfield is when you spend a skill point on target locking, which is an absolute must-have. Disabling weapons is a great way to even the odds when you're being ganged up on.
Yeah, indeed.
But
Thank
even
you.
better is when you take out their engines and
reminding
board
me.
them. Some of the best moments in my Starfield playthrough have happened during these raids, as I went room by room mopping up enemies until I gunned down the captain and sat in their chair to seize their ship and its cargo for myself. I'm definitely going full pirate next run through, so I can do this all the time. Another highlight of Starfield is the sheer variety of spaceships.
Atlas? Damn, why does that sound familiar? Why does that take me back, actually? I think there was a game called Atlas on PC at one point. I might very well be wrong about that. You can look at it. Wait, so he can board ships? Oh, that's funny.
Flying through the settled systems. And the fact that they're so modular and customizable.
I didn't think he was going to make another playthrough on this game, to be honest. If I got to be real, like, this review does not give me the impression that he wants to play this again. Like, it sounds very half-hearted.
Made me want to dump more skill points into starship design, so that I can mess with it more and learn the somewhat complicated rules of how to snap the pieces together to form a...
This is another part that kind of... Like, I like customization, man, but when you start to add on, like, all this shit right here that you're seeing on the screen, like, all this, like, you lose me. You will automatically lose me with this. I'm just like, holy fuck, you're making me do a lot already. Like, why the fuck do I need to do any of this? Like, you will lose me right here.
Space-worthy vessel.
That's just me personally, though.
Oh yeah. And the lockpicking minigame deserves a shout out as one of the best I've seen in an RPG. Are there bugs? Of course there are. I've seen a fair amount of model and texture pop in.
Listen, he's been contradicting himself for like the longest in this fucking review. He's just been it's been one big fucking contradiction. Like, it's like he wants to love the game and then he wants to hate the game. And then he wants to love the game, and it's like picking rose petals off. Like, she loves me not type shit. That's what he's been doing the whole fucking time.
Been occasional crashes, performance slowdowns, mostly during autosaves, wonky waypoints, clipping issues.
Here's the she loves me not moments.
Wrong camera angles during conversations, the works. I've played mostly on PC myself, but IGN's Xbox Series X players report occasional framerate dips, but nothing outrageous. I have to say, Starfield has been fairly stable for a big, open RPG like this. I never ran into a quest I couldn't finish on the first try, for instance, so its bugs haven't been bad. Your results may vary, though. With a game this complex, they always do.
Oh boy, what do we think the verdict is, everybody? I'm curious. I'm curious to what the verdict is. Like, we already know he's gonna rate it a 7. We already know that. But is there more to the verdict in these? Because I don't ever watch IGN reviews all the way through anymore. You heard that too, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, that's been this whole fucking review. Like, it's been very fucking confusing. Like, who hired this guy? And did he actually study the fucking game? Like, it's one thing to put it, okay, let me tell you something. And it's a lot of the reason why I don't review a lot of games and why I have such a hard time putting out review videos is that part of the work of reviewing games is actually in not just the time you put in, but the studying that you do of the fucking game. Like, you have to study every fucking moment that you do. And it, like, I can do it at the same time. Like, fortunately, I can do it at the same time while I'm playing the game, but not everybody can do that. And it's very difficult to actually do that. So when it comes to games like this, like, I would never fucking review this game because it's too fucking long. There's too much to review. There's so much. Like, this is one of those games where if you try to review it off the bat, you will miss so many fucking important details on first playthrough. You could you would have to split to review this game. You have to split it up into like multiple different videos, and they would probably be maybe an hour to an hour and a half long, depending on how detailed you wanted to get into it. So it's buggy, but actually considering the game, it's not buggy. It's what you fucking expect from a Bethesda game. That's what I'm gonna tell you. That's a more reasonable take. You're gonna have, when you play this game, you're gonna have fucking you're gonna have the regular fucking Bethesda flaws that you normally get. It's gonna be the same glitchy shit with the NPCs. It's gonna be the same fucking glitches that you get in the landscapes. Like, what the fuck what did we expect? Did we ever expect Bethesda to get this shit right? Like, it's what you expect. Like, we've never criticized them for it before. In fact, we've taken a liking to it for some reason.
It's never a great sign when somebody recommends a game on the grounds that it gets good after more than a dozen hours, but that's very much the kind of game Starfield is, and I do recommend it.
And to think, I almost went for coffee instead.
There are a lot of forces working against
Why does he sound like the dude? He sounds like a wood elf from fucking Oblivion.
it, and the combination of its disjointed space travel, non-existent maps, aggravating inventory management, and slow rollout of essential abilities very nearly did it in. It was the joys of piloting a custom spaceship into and out of all sorts of morally ambiguous situations in a rich sci-fi universe that eventually pulled it out of a nosedive.
That's gonna be the tricky part though, man. Like, is it, like, this is definitely Bethesda's biggest experience, but is it the greatest? And that's gonna depend on the people. That's not dependent on, like, and this shit right here actually proves that. Like, everybody has their own thing. Like I said, either you're gonna enjoy this game or you're not, and that's solely gonna be up to you. I don't think that this is a game that should be reviewed by anybody. I think but the person that decides to buy it. That's just me personally. I don't think anybody can review it. Like, I'm trying to be reasonable as I can with what I saw. I'm trying very hard to be reasonable with it because at the end of the day, it just didn't appeal to me like that. Like, this is cool. Like, graphic wise, like, I watched this on 4K, looks good. Like, do we have any issues with this? Like, based off of what you're looking at right now, just off of facial expressions alone, do we think we have a problem with this? I don't think anybody would have a real issue with that. You might find some choppiness in that motherfucker for sure. You're definitely going to find some choppiness. But, like, graphic wise, you're probably not going to have any issues. The textures actually look pretty good. For what it's worth, for how big this game actually is, for what it's worth, they put in a lot of work on this fucking texture shit. The one thing I will say, and I said this last night, is that, like, I have never seen facial expressions that were so expressionless but had so much expression at the same time. And, like, I don't know. Let me see if this shows what I mean.
Might even let you fly me around sometime.
Like, do you see how, like, her face looks normal, but then you'll see like her eyebrow, like the wrinkles, like her eyebrows are raising up really high. Like, she has no expression in her face and yet has all the expression in the world. It's the funniest fucking shit in the world. When I saw that, I'm like, holy shit, like, how is that possible? How do you do that? No, but he compared the graphics to The Last of Us and God of War as not to on par. She looks like a cat person from Skyrim. Oh, the Khajiit. I don't remember what they're called. Yeah, the Khajiit. They're Khajiit.
Even let you fly me around sometime.
I'm glad that I powered through the early hours, because its interstellar mystery story pays off, and once the ball got rolling, combat on foot and in space gradually became good enough that its momentum carried me into New Game Plus after I'd finished the main story after around 60 hours. Like Skyrim and Fallout 4 before it, there's still an immense amount of quality role-playing quests and interesting NPCs out there waiting to be stumbled across, and the pull to seek it out is strong. For more on RPGs, check out our reviews of Baldur's Gate 3
There was
and
no
Sea of Stars.
fucking verdict
For everything
there.
else,
Hold
stick with
on.
IGN.
What was the verdict? I don't understand what his verdict was. Like, he started off like it's hard to believe that anybody would recommend anything that a slow catapulting game with glitches and everything. Like, what? Huh? What is this?
Welcome back to the channel, it's Lieutenant Buzz Lightyear, and to anyone that has taken the early plunge into Starfield, you've now gotten a little taste of what this game has to offer. We've got a lot to talk about today, as over the last 24 hours, early reviews and critic reviews have been popping up all over the place. I myself posted a full spoiler-free review yesterday, and there's a lot to take in here, with some outliers for sure, and of course, I have some thoughts on it all. Now, I say this every upload, but I truly mean it. Your support for my Starfield uploads is awesome and deserves the
Wait, let me see if I can find it again.
Prior to posting my early review of Starfield yesterday, but in an early prediction...
Alright everybody, strap It's never a great sign when somebody recommends a game on the grounds that it gets good after more than a dozen hours, but that's very much the kind of game Starfield is, and I do recommend it.
And to think, I almost went for coffee instead.
There are a lot of forces working against it, and the combination of its disjointed space travel, non-existent map...
That is not fucking convincing to me at any point that this game is recommended, that you actually recommend this game. You cannot tell me that you recommend something and then say, well, there's a lot of things working against the game. Like, that's not fucking convincing. Do you know what the point of selling something is? It is to convince somebody that it is worth purchasing. We heard that, right?
Commended.
And to think,
it's never a great sign when somebody recommends a game on the grounds that it gets good after more than a dozen hours, but that's very much the kind of game Starfield is, and I do recommend it.
and to think, I almost went for coffee instead.
There are a lot of forces working against it, and the combination of its disjointed space travel, non-existent maps, aggravating inventory management, and slow rollout of essential abilities very nearly did it in. It was the joys of piloting a custom spaceship into and out of all sorts of morally ambiguous situations in a rich sci-fi universe that eventually pulled it out of a nosedive.
I might even let
That eventually pulled it out of a nosedive. So what you experienced in a certain portion of the game is what pulls it into the I recommend space? Then people can just make that fucking decision on them for themselves of whether or not they want to get this game. If that's how you're going to review a game, it just doesn't make sense. You see how safe these motherfuckers play this shit? It drives me crazy. I just don't understand how that's possible and how these fucking publications even exist anymore. So the game isn't good in the beginning, but it gets good once it opens up as the RPG does. Is that what he's saying? I don't know what the fuck he's saying. What's going on, the crazy mofo? How you doing? I don't understand what the fuck he's saying at all. It just sounds more or less like he is saying, well, I recommend the game, but these are the problems with the game. I still recommend the game, but this is the stuff you're gonna run into. It's like trying to buy a car from a car salesman, and the car salesman says, hey, this is the best motherfucking car, but guess what? The backfire on this motherfucker is a beast. You will duck every time you start this motherfucking car. Oh yeah, and the car struggles to start. before you can even get it out of the driveway. Oh yeah, you might want to check the e-brake too, because if you try to stop, you know, the e-brake is just going, you lift the e-brake, you still keep moving. So you got to put your foot on the brake and then pull the e-brake up at the same time just to be able to get the e-brake to even remotely work. But you still want to buy the car. No, man. You can't convince me with that.
You fly me around sometime.
I'm glad that I powered through the early hours, because its interstellar mystery story pays off, and once the ball got rolling, combat on.
Help, I don't understand what he's saying. Like, I don't know if he hates it, likes it, recommends it, or regrets it. I don't even understand if he could play it like he wanted to. See, that's the thing. Like, he couldn't board a ship at the beginning. Then all of a sudden he wants to board ships. And then, like, it's just been a big contradiction. One contradiction after the other. It's one contradiction eating another. And it's just like, man, get out of here. How did you get your job? Seriously, how did you get your job? I was watching this one. I want to see this
Buzz
one.
Lightyear, and to anyone that has taken the early plunge.
I want to see how this. Let's see. Hold on, because he's just making. It looks like he's just making. He's doing my predictions, Open Critic, Metacritic. He's just kind of looking into like the feedback and stuff. So I want to see what his take is on this.
So I did not make this public knowledge prior to posting my early review of Starfield yesterday, but in an early prediction, you know, just amongst friends in a private chat, I predicted that Starfield would probably score somewhere in the mid 80s, if not up into the low 90s on sites like OpenCritic and Metacritic. I thought it was a very solid offering. I had some small grievances with some of the design choices. Yes, there's some jank in there. Yes, there's some wonky behavior in there, but it's a Bethesda RPG tried and true. It's Oblivion in space. And so when I hop over here to OpenCritic,
that's another thing too. Why are we not I have a question. Why is it that we have gone to Oblivion? We've gone as far back as Oblivion and nobody talks about fucking Oblivion. I love Oblivion, by the way. But all we've heard for the last decade is Skyrim this and Skyrim that. Why aren't you comparing it to that? That's fucking crazy to me. And if you go back and play Oblivion versus like Skyrim, you'll see a huge difference in just 5 years alone. So he couldn't do everything like he could in a normal Bethesda game, but then it opened up like a normal RPG would and normally does, because you get more powerful and learn things. That's normally how shit goes though. That's what I thought. And like I said, like if it's slow, it's because it's supposed to be slow. Like this game is too big not to be slow. It's too big for you to just launch everybody into it, because there's so many aspects to it. That's the one thing I will give it credit for, that is that while there may be some things that's repetitive, like your the way you do your RPG handling is amazing as far as that goes. Starfield.
This is, as of this morning, top critic average 88%. Critics recommended 94%. And of course, we've got some zingers out there. I'm going to touch on IGN in a moment. 7 out of 10. I disagree. PC Gamer, 75 out of...
What? Somebody tell me, when did 7 become so bad? Like, I think 7 is reasonable. I think 7 to 8 is reasonable. And when did 80%, or when did 80s, something in the 80s become so bad? And when is that known as a flop? Because I thought what a flop was when you don't make certain amount of sales. That's what I thought a flop was. And if that's the case, there's a lot of fucking games that's flopped in the industry that they don't talk about those. That's what I thought too. I'm just trying to understand what this man is saying. Like, I can't do the first mission and then do whatever, like most Bethesda games, right? Yeah, that's why I say I don't know. I'm not worried about his ass anymore. Like,
100.
That's what you expect from IGN. That's why I don't trust anything that IGN says. Say what you want about that dude that You can praise this dude all you want to that did the Baldur's Gate 3. I don't trust his fucking judgment. Why? Because he is guilty by affiliation already. Just by coming out. I can't fucking praise that. I don't give a fuck about one person that pops up out of IGN every once in a blue moon that decides they want to decide to get that wants to try and get honest every so often. Like, fuck that. Like, fuck that. Like, he does not deserve that fucking praise. Leave that to somebody that's actually been real and been about it for the last decade. 7 isn't bad. It means it's got good bones and there's a vision, just needs help. And it does. It's good. And that's why I said, like, I think this is a game that they should continuously work on. Like, am I wrong for saying that? Like, you built something so massive, like, why not keep working on it, right? Why not keep pushing out content for it? That's what I think. See, Destin's video seems way more suspicious now. That's what I'm saying. Like, how do we give one person fucking credit for being honest and then another person that's in the same fucking group? The same fucking group we give him shit for. Like, why not give them both shit? No, motherfucker, you're a part of our IGN too. I don't trust your fucking word. I haven't been able to trust your word for over a decade now. Why give one person praise that comes out? Why couldn't he? But shit, motherfucker, you know what you have to do to prove yourself to me? You basically have to come out and say, hey, I quit IGN for this, and this reason, and then put out that fucking review. Like, there's no way we're sitting here saying that, oh, his review is the greatest. He has the greatest fucking review because Baldur's Gate is something that, so I appreciate your, like, fuck that, man. Get the fuck out of here. The one game that would make sense as a live service, why not? Yeah, it does make sense. Fuck Elder Scrolls Online. That's my hot take of the day. Fuck Elder Scrolls Online. Just put in the work for this. Put in your work for this. If this is what you are so hyped about, then show me how hyped you are. Like, and I'm speaking like dev-wise, because Todd Howard and Phil Spencer were fucking amazed by this game. So why not show how amazed you are by it and continuously put love into it and still it somehow put out an Elder Scrolls 6? It might be like Andromeda, kinda like Andromeda, I guess. Crazy mofo.
Disagree with them. GameSpot, 7 out of 10. I disagree with them. But then everyone else is pretty much where I thought it would be. Mid 80s up to, I'd say, low 90s, if not perfect scores. I don't agree with that either. I mean, it's not a perfect.
I was going to say, you sounded like you were going to be a perfect score guy, which I was going to say, fuck no. I'd say 7 to 8. 7 to 8 is reasonable. If you had said 6, now if you say something like a 6, then we have an issue then. But I guess we'll see what happens when it's available to the whole public, and then we'll watch. We'll see if anybody review bombs it. If people start review bombing it, then you already know what the deal is. If they don't, then hey, that's the game. That's a part of it.
Game.
And guess what, journos, you established that. You allowed us the ability to be able to do shit like that. Hey, guess what? Steam, you all allowed us to do the ability to do shit like that. So there can't be any complaining if somebody does it or if they don't.
Now, what I found pretty interesting is if you look over to the right there, it's showing some other recent releases and what they're actually scoring right now on OpenCritic. Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon.
I've never even heard of fucking OpenCritic before today, which is crazy. I've only ever heard of Metacritic.
Of course, FromSoft's latest entry into the AC franchise. I love AC, by the way. Scoring an 85, so it's actually below Starfield right now. And then another highly touted, I believe it was EA who really was pushing this game, Immortals of Aveum. I have not played it. Hopefully I didn't butcher that.
I've never even heard of that fucking game.
Name, they're at a 73. So Starfield sitting pretty strong right now at a top critic average of 88. And just to do...
Wait, did I buy you Baldur's Gate? For real? I bought you a different version. That's right, because you won. Because I think you won something. You won something off of Steam. Got it before it was cool. That's what I'm saying, man. Like that's what isn't that the argument that I was making, Roxas? Is that like, why is Baldur's Gate so fucking popular now when they've gone through like multiple fucking developers? Like, why is it so fucking cool now? Like, it makes no fucking sense. Like these people, this industry is so fucking filled with fickle ass people. Like, one minute you love to hate something, and the next minute you're on the fucking bandwagon because somebody they see made it look cool, and then get mad because you can't do the same things that they can do. Like, come on, man, get the fuck out of here. Everybody's play style is different, and everybody has a different interest.
Join my crew and push.
Crazy mofo with the subscribe. Thank you.
Do our due diligence as of this morning. Metacritic showing a Metascore of 88, so pulling the exact same score as OpenCritic. As I take a look at some of these outlets and what they've scored it at.
That's right, though, because I gave you the choice of what game you wanted to get on Steam, and you said Baldur's Gate. And you want to know the funny thing is that I forgot all about that fucking game. And you want to know what? I'm gonna keep that same fucking energy. I'm not fucking, like, when did this industry become so pander worthy? When the fuck did that happen? Somebody tell me that. Like, we have so many FOMO motherfuckers in this industry, it's not even funny. Like, do you even, like, I bet you if we sat down 100 people that were gaming and we asked them what it is that they like about games, or what genre of games that they like, I bet you they wouldn't be able to answer, or they'll go with the safest answer. It's like, that's the point of this industry, is to be able to find what you like. Armored Core 6, yeah, I'm at the end of the first playthrough. I'm taking a break today because my hands hurt, and I'll probably be taking a break this weekend from it because my hands hurt. But I'm already at the end of my first playthrough, so second playthrough will go into my new streaming show. So
I don't agree with hundreds, but VGC, IGN Japan. Interesting that an IGN affiliate gives it a perfect score. I'll touch on IGN in a moment. Like I said, I've got Destructoid at 100, Games Radar Plus at 100. I think I saw Paul. Where's Paul Tassi? There he is. Paul Tassi at Forbes Magazine at a 95. I would probably, and I'm not a registered critic, I would probably rate Starfield the way it sits, the way I tested it right now, with some of the clunkiness, with some of the jank. I'd probably put it at a 90, 89, 88, somewhere in that range. I think that's a fair score for it right now. And of course, we need to touch on the controversy, the buzz within the Starfield community, and that has to do with the IGN USA scoring of Starfield at a 7 out of 10. I'm over here on the Starfield Reddit. It says IGN, but we take all the IGN reviews. And of course, USA at a 7 out of 10, which is low. France, not.
See, and that's where I start to get fucking questioned, like, because when you look at how USA did the review versus how everybody else did, like, the most fair out of this is this one right here. I can't fucking pronounce it. I don't know if you see it. It's an 8.5 out of 10. That's the most fair that I see in this. Let's see, Hungary, no note, but a great review. That's fucking hilarious. See, and that's the thing though, man. Oh, that's the thing that drives me fucking crazy, is that what is the actual standards? Isn't that something? Me and you have been arguing about that from the beginning of time, about the standards of the fucking game industry. We have been arguing about that. And there's, I don't know, that like there's not a real clear fucking decisive, for some reason we can't come up with a clear decisive system that will get people to think for them fucking selves. Like IGN is the pinnacle and that's it. Or the Jesus of fucking or the supposed Jesus of fucking games journalism, Jason Schreier is the end all be all. Oh, he does all his research. Great. But what does he have to say about the research that he's done? Is it the smartest fucking takes in the world? Do we actually think about shit like that?
9, Brazil 9.5, Japan perfect score 10, Spain 10, Latam 9, Benelux.
And that's the primary problem with IGN. They can never make up their fucking mind. These are just affiliates too.
8.5. So I would agree with many of those scores. I don't agree with Japan or Spain that Starfield is a perfect
9.5. Wait,
game. It's not
he said he agreed with most
scores.
There's no way, because you said you would sit it around a 9. Okay, that means you would agree with France, but Brazil, you don't agree with Japan or Spain, but Brazil. This is nuts, man. Like, I guess I just don't understand. I don't understand where people are in this industry when it comes to ratings. Stop the rating system. This is a game where people need to actually just buy it for themselves and see.
I don't agree with Japan or Spain.
That's great. You don't have to.
7 out of 10. Let's take a look into this one. If you scroll about halfway down through this IGN article, the header here reads, "In Starfield, you can't go anywhere without fast traveling." And here's what they say. A mission might send you to the other side of a vast star.
They do realize that if you were not to have the ability to fast travel in this game, then you would never get anywhere. Am I crazy for saying that? Because if you use the realism of space travel, you're going to be sitting there for a while.
Map, but the actual travel time between systems is always the same, and the poorly explained fuel system, which is actually just your range, isn't much of a limitation. When I discovered that so much of spaceflight is effectively a series of non-interactive cutscenes, it largely shattered the illusion of exploring a vast universe. It's impossible not, and they emphasize not to.
That's something that I'm just like, wow, you really want to sit there for 2 fucking hours and travel the fucking universe like you don't have anything better to do? And that's the fucking issue? Seriously? My issue with No Man's Sky was sitting there for like 4 fucking hours waiting just to get to the next planet. And that was like a next door planet from where I started off from.
Compare Starfield to the way you freely enter and exit planet's atmosphere in No Man's Sky. Okay, I'll touch on that in a moment. So it's a bit of a letdown every time you see a planet, and remember, it's just a picture of a planet you'll never be able to reach by flying toward it. It's something that happens a lot. Now, I find it interesting that they compare No Man's Sky with Starfield, because at their core, you probably could not find 2 genres of game that are this dissimilar. Besides the fact that they share a setting of space, one is all about space.
Well, you can't dismiss the similarities in the games either. It's not saying that it is the same, but there are similarities.
Travel, space exploration, planet exploration, versus another, which is an RPG, which is all about dialogue choices, about story, about narrative.
See, and he's dismissing that. He's dismissing the fact that there are elements of No Man's Sky in this game, but it doesn't mean that it is No Man's Sky, if that makes sense.
Just happens to be set in space, and it sounds like they're holding that against Starfield, the fact that it doesn't have the ability.
Now, I still don't understand why people are complaining about that. Like, I don't want to sit there for 2 fucking hours trying to fucking travel to the next planet, or 4 hours trying to travel to the next planet. I'm sorry. Like, good. Fucking, if I'm playing this game, get me to the next planet as soon as ASAP. Oh, guess what? You can't even just enter the planet either. You got to get scanned too. So that's pretty dope. I think that's dope. If you're gonna, don't just allow me onto your planet, scan me, because I want to know if I'm gonna get attacked or not. Maybe I got some contraband on my shit. I think that's pretty fucking dope.
To take all of No Man's Sky and bolt it on to this RPG game by Bethesda. This is an interesting topic. Maybe leave me some feedback about this one in the comment section below. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip all the way down to the bottom of this IGN article. There's a lot here. They have a lot of grievances against the game. Once again, if you want to read the whole thing, link in the video description. I'm down at the section that says verdict. It's never a great sign when someone recommends a game on the grounds that it gets good after more than a dozen hours.
I just watched that.
It, and the combination of disjointed space travel, non-existent maps, aggravating inventory management, and a slow rollout of essential abilities very nearly did it in. It was the joys of piloting a custom spaceship into and out of all sorts of morally ambiguous situations and a rich sci-fi universe that eventually pulled it out of a nosedive. I'm glad that I powered through the early hours because its interstellar mystery story pays off, and once the ball got rolling, combat on foot and in space gradually became good enough that its momentum carried me into New Game Plus after I'd finished the main story after around 60 hours. Like Skyrim and Fallout 4 before it, there's still an immense amount of quality role-playing quests and interesting NPCs out there waiting to be stumbled across, and the pull to seek it out is strong. Now, in the interest of time, I've skipped over huge portions of this article, but like I said earlier, I'll include a link to it in the video description. And as I read through IGN's review of Starfield, at least to me, it reads in a very contradictory manner. In one regard, they're so very happy with previous and less polished Bethesda titles, such as Fallout 4, which, by the way, IGN scored a 9.5 out of 10, but
which is something that I didn't say, because they did score that fucking shit high, and that was nowhere near that fucking score. I'm sorry, Fallout 4 was good, but it wasn't 9.5 good. Like, that fucking shit was like 8.0, or yeah, 8. I give it maybe an 8. I'd score it between a 7. I'd score that between a 7 and an 8 too. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was a big contradiction. It was a fucking contradiction. But IGN is a contradiction. They contradict themselves. Why rate this game at a 7, but you rank fucking Legions at a 9? Like, that's nuts to me.
But then, as they look at Starfield and they look at specific systems, which are, to me and to many people that I've spoken to, vastly improved within Starfield, they say they're actually negatives and detract from the way the game performs. Listen to this part. They say, without anything to fill the void left by Fallout's VATS, gunplay is left feeling largely unmemorable. And at least,
see, that's the part where I was kind of like, what do you mean largely unmemorable? Are we supposed to remember the gunplay in the fucking game? Like, are we? Or am I fucking nuts? Because I don't fucking go around looking to remember the fucking gunplay like that, like it's so fucking impactful. I think the last game where I guess the last game that I looked at like that was when the first Gears came out, and they had like the chainsaws on the fucking automatic weapons, like, but that's about it.
At least to everyone that I have spoken to, which is a very limited group, and at least the way that I perceive the game, because the way I played it and my 15,000 hours spent in the Battlefield franchise, which is a renowned FPS.
I was about to say, I know you did not spend 15,000 hours playing this fucking game, and it just fucking became available to your ass.
Yes, the gunplay, at least to me, felt vastly improved within Starfield over Fallout, and I'm actually happy of the fact
it's because it's faster. It's definitely faster than Fallout.
That they left out the VATS. Now it's down to headshots. It's about tactics. It's about taking cover. I simply don't know where they're coming from as they go out and compliment Fallout 4 and many of the less refined systems and mechanics contained in that game, and then they give it a...
Hey, listen, it's a smoother version of Destiny. That's all I got to say. It's choppy, but when you get into these fights, man, some of these fights be going fast as shit.
9.5, which I agree, yeah, it was a great game, but then they look at Starfield and all those systems have been improved upon, and they give it a 7. And it seems like I'm not the only one that's baffled by this 7 out of 10 score. Here's a tweet by Paul Tassi, of course, of Forbes magazine. A 7 out of 10 is genuinely wild to me, but whatever. And then, of course, we saw this exchange over on Twitter. This is from Jez Corden. I think the review is a bit cynical. It has flaws, but it depends on your perspective. The good stuff more than makes up for the bad. I don't know. These reviews are completely subjective, and of course, IGN is entitled to their opinions. I think this is a case of...
Okay, we always say that, right? That somebody is entitled to their opinion. But man, does your opinion seem to have more weight in certain instances, doesn't it? It definitely say. I think we need to fucking sit back and actually look at that. Because if you can sit here and say you agree with a 8, like a 8.5, maybe a 9, in between an 8.5 and a 9, but then you agree with a 9.5, then we got to take a look at that. Like, where is your stance at? Because 9.5 is damn near fucking perfect. And I'm sorry, but this game is not perfect. And I don't think you'll ever find like a truly perfect game. Even the games that get scored 10 out of 10s aren't really perfect. Like Tears of the Kingdom was by far not even perfect, but it fucking did things that were fucking impactful.
Beauty is in the eye of...
The most impactful thing, and I will say that I vastly underestimated this game for when it comes to impact, was it's not going to leave the impact that I expected it to. Like, this game is definitely already impacting in a different way. Like, it's actually getting us to question what it is that we are looking for in the gaming space. It is getting us to question who it is that we're listening to for reviews on games. It is getting us talking about how we do things in the game. Did I already say that? How we're doing things in the gaming space? Like what the set rules are for what standards. Did I already say that? I don't think I did. I don't know. Anyway, it's going to force us to create actual standards that aren't contradictory or less contradictory than what they are now, because that is truly ridiculous. And the fact that people can look at 8s and in the 80s is garbage or flops is absolutely nuts to me. Like, where are our fucking standards at? Like, have we really accepted the bare minimum so much that now we're just looking at how we've lost sight of what bare minimum actually is and what isn't bare minimum?
The beholder. But one thing that kind of cemented my opinions about IGN, and I had to go and look this up, and my suspicions were confirmed. Here was the review of Battlefield 2042 back in late 2021. They gave it that...
Yeah, this is actually that doesn't even deserve a 7. How did they give this game a fucking 7? And who did this? Stella Chung? Is she still even at IGN? She doesn't even look like she works at IGN anymore. She looks like she has her own channel.
That same 7 out of 10 that they gave Starfield. Now, I was there for the launch of Battlefield 2042. It was an effing disaster. I'm not going to curse for fear of getting demonetized, but there is no way that Battlefield 2042 got a 7 out of 10 and Starfield got that same 7 out of 10. Now, I know these games are completely different genres.
And they're two totally different people reviewing them. And I can easily say, oh, I want to have this debate so bad. We're going to have the inclusion debate again. At some point, we are going to have the inclusion debate. Because it's not that we want to, for me, it's not that gatekeeping is the thing to do. For me, it's that not everybody is going to appreciate the industry the same way that somebody that's been in it for a while has. Like, for some reason, for some people, it may just be like something that they casually do. For other people, they may be really hardcore. For others, it's in between. Maybe maybe they're learning. I think the inclusion battle should be different this time. I think we should talk about what kinds of people get into it for certain reasons? IGN, for whatever fucking reason, just seems to let any and everybody fucking review games. And it is nuts to me. And guess what? That all ties into that. At some point, we're going to have that conversation. I don't want to gatekeep anybody, but man, we need a standard, because this is the most unique form of entertainment. It is the most interactive, and that's what makes it unique. It's the most interactive.
But Battlefield 2042 was a nightmare of a train wreck at launch.
Battlefield should have got a 2, maybe a 1.
And has only recently kind of returned to a Battlefield-esque type experience, but there is no way.
Hey, I got a question. What's the last game that we've seen below 5? If somebody can show me that, that would be amazing.
That Starfield gets the same.
And name me the year.
7 out of 10 that Battlefield 2042 got. Absolutely no way. And on that note, let's go ahead and wrap this one up for today. Leave me some feedback about any and all of this in the comment section below. Remember.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with your takes, buddy. I mean, I agree on some things, but I don't agree on everything. 9.5, a little high. Hey, look, it's Alana Pierce.
I played Starfield for 20 hours so far. Here are my quick pros and cons. Pro, it is the least buggy Bethesda game I have ever played. They clearly took some extra time to polish this one, and it shows. Con, exploration in general is really limited. This one's a bummer for me because I love exploring in Bethesda games. Like just walking in a direction and not knowing what crazy quest I'm going to come across. Starfield does have a lot of planets, most of them are empty and will not have any quests on them whatsoever. And even the planets that do have quests, they're all really contained to one location, from everything I've seen. Pro, the companions are a lot of fun and super diverse, like such different personalities to pick from. Also an incredible voice acting cast. I just genuinely liked spending time with all the companions. Con-ish. While it is, I think, Bethesda's best gunplay yet, the shooting still doesn't feel quite as good to me as other games in the genre. Pro, the base building and ship customization are just as extensive as you would hope. The shipbuilding is actually a little bit tough to get into initially. Base building is just like Fallout. Another potential con, I think the game takes a really long time to get into regardless. I played Starfield for 20 hours so far. Here.
Okay. Do they have the correction? Oh, they show her unveiling the Starfield Xbox.
I officially have my hands on the Starfield Constellation Edition, which I'm going to be giving away to somebody on Twitch, but for now, let's unbox it. First up, we have a steelbook case. Inside, we do not have a video game, but we do have what looks like an in-game credit. This is what they look like. That's really cool. It's really solid too. It's not plastic, which I love. The coolest thing about this is that it actually contains the code for the game on the back.
Then why have that many planets? Well, if you pay attention to anything, the purpose of having that many planets is to be able to explore all those planets, build, do whatever you want, find life, all that shit. Their goal was not only to create a story, but it was also to create a universe that was so immersive that you could actually, it felt like you were actually traveling. You were doing interstellar travel. That was the purpose. Lord of the Rings, Gollum. But that's what I'm saying. That was the point. The point is that when you go through the game, you're supposed to build buildings. They're supposed to be empty. They're supposed to be non-inhab, like they're not supposed to be inhabitable or inhabited. So your goal, aside from everything else, is to inhabit those planets, hire people to do it. That's why I said, like, it feels like a job to me, because I don't want to have to do all that. Like, that is a fucking job. That is a job and a half. But there are people that are going to like that. I think personally, so Sims, in a sense, yes, in a sense. I mean, there's a lot of aspects of a lot of games in this one. I just don't think they can compare everything to, they can't compare this game to every aspect of those games. Like, it has Destiny in it, it has No Man's Sky in it, it has elements of like Call of Duty in it, it has elements of other games in there, and it's just inevitable. For whatever reason, it is inevitable, because when you create something this big, it's very hard not to have something. It's hard not to compare. That's why I disagree with that guy's take, though, is that he said it's not like No Man's Sky. Motherfucker, yes it is. It has elements of it. It doesn't mean it is No Man's Sky. It just means that it has elements of it. Like you taking certain materials from other planets, building things on those empty planets, the life forms. Like, that's what No Man's Sky had in it. Hey, thank God they didn't put the interstellar travel that No Man's Sky had in that one. Like I said, you'll be sitting there for like 4 fucking hours waiting to get to the next fucking planet. I don't want to do that. Why are people complaining about that, of all things? Like, shit, get me to the next planet. Like, do you understand that if you were to do this in real life, let's say you have the ability to move at the speed of light, it would still take you 800 fucking years just to get to the next fucking the next solar system? Like, that's fucking crazy, right? Or I'm sorry, it would take you 800 to 900 years just to get to the neighboring galaxy. I don't know how long it would take you to get to the neighboring solar system. But whatever it is, at the speed of light, it still takes a while. But I would imagine it still takes some time, because light actually takes a long time to reflect at a distance. Like, when you see, like, what's a really good way to fucking explain this? I wanted to use the analogy of a lighthouse. That's what I wanted to use. Because for a lighthouse, you can see it at a distance, but it's only at a certain distance that you could see it in. It doesn't mean that light stops right there, if that makes sense. Shadows, yeah. So if the speed of light takes you a long time to get somewhere, then they have overpowered these fucking ships by a long shot. And if you see the maps, when you play the game and you see the galactic map, like, it is fucking crazy. What does it remind me of? There was I think it's Divergence Eve. Divergence Eve is what that map reminds me of. Divergence Eve is actually another example of, like, interstellar travel that annoyed the fuck out of me. Like, Divergence Eve took forever to get to places. Like, if I would argue that if you didn't want to make the comparison to No Man's Sky, you could make the comparison to Divergence Eve when it comes to certain aspects. I would say that. But to not have the comparison at all, I just disagree with that.
A good explanation for Starfield's border controversy.
Folks are pretending to be mad at Bethesda Game Studios for making a Bethesda Game Studio game, and it's hilarious. So there's this new game called Starfield.
Really?
It releases in early access on Thursday. It's
What?
the first new IP from Bethesda in 25 years.
Holy
They're the
shit.
folks who sold you Skyrim like 19 times,
That's
and
it?
also the Fallout series. But some folks are just, like, beyond angry because there's been some leaks that are, I think, more or less confirmed.
Well, that's because they try to make it fucking realistic. And you, like, when you talk about interstellar travel, like, you know what? The best thing that you could do if you wanted to do, like, realism at all is to, if you wanted to have a form of realism, like, and you want to play that, play Eve. Just play Eve. Eve is a perfect example of that. You could just play that. Like, people spent hours upon hours upon hours playing that fucking game. Why do I need to do it in this one? So I'm glad that they did that, chat. Like, No Man's Sky was ridiculous. Like, it is ridiculously boring to do. Like, if I wanted to stream something and then have something else to do in stream, I could do that whole stream. My whole stream would be just flying from one planet to another. It takes you at least 20 fucking minutes just to get off the fucking planet that you start on in the first place. Once you actually take off from the ground, it takes about 20 minutes just to get out of the fucking, just to get out of the pole, the gravitational pull. I just used portals in No Man's Sky. Yeah, see, I didn't know about portals. But I know it took me a long time just to get out of that motherfucker, though. I'll tell you that.
Confirmed by the studio about some boundaries in the game.
Yeah.
And people were expecting just like the most impossible thing ever. Trying to simulate an entire unbroken, seamless universe is very, very hard. No Man's Sky attempted it. They have like a quintillion planets. You can go from the surface of a planet up into space. And they added a bunch of content to the game over 5 years. So it's not the disaster that it was when it launched. But at its core, it's kind of boring. As a purely space sim, it is very impressive. But if you're looking for like an RPG Bethesda experience, you're not going to find it there, obviously.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are going to go into Starfield. I think the reason why people have been negative about Starfield is because the first impression of the game was pretty bad. I think that's really what happens, and it's kind of like what I said before.
But it goes to show you that how much we actually put into what one person fucking says about a game, instead of actually doing the research and actually going to, like, that's one thing. Like, I don't ever want just my voice to be fucking heard, the end all be all of why you get a game, which is why I just do suggestive shit. Like, I highly recommend, like, if you disagree or if you think something is funny, find somebody else that has a different take or see if their take is similar to mine. But nobody's takes are going to be the same. It depends on the planet you're on and your thrusters. Well, then I had some sucky ass thrusters, and my planet that I started on sucked.
That as soon as people, was it? Yeah, I think it was. I do. I think that the first impression of Starfield was pretty bad. Yeah, I didn't. And also, like, yeah, you're right.
First impressions don't mean a fucking thing to me either. Like, I wish it's a concept that I could explain. Actually, I probably can. I just wish it would be more understood, I guess. Like, you don't have to agree with it, but at least understand it. Like, first impressions, think of it like a date. If somebody is very nice and they're taking you out, they got you dinner, they got you a movie, they took you on a nice romantic stroll on the beach, that don't mean shit. Meet the parents like them. The reason why first impressions in that instance doesn't make a difference to me is because there is way too much time to pull the fucking mask off and say, hey, we're settled in, now look here, this is how this is gonna work. I'm gonna do this, and this, and you just gonna obey and blah blah blah. This is why we wait for games to come out. Because when we start seeing first impressions of a game or the trailers are really good examples of this. The first impressions that you get of a trailer, it looks epic, but as soon as you get the hands on, it's just like, well, what the fuck? Why does this look like the trailer? Like, that's why first impressions don't make a fucking difference to me, because there's a lot that could happen between that trailer and the actual product that comes out. That's why I say, that's one of the reasons why I say these showcases need to stop. Like, just make the fucking games. Find a different way to add your game. If you're just gonna give me trailers, you don't need a showcase for that. You could just use YouTube or fucking one of these other social media platforms to do your shit. You could use Hulu. You could use fucking anything that puts ads on. But we don't need a showcase for that. Especially when I know that your game isn't gonna look like this trailer looks. Like, you've seen the new way they're doing trailers now, right? And if I hadn't seen the game itself, it would look funny. But now they've got people like Batista doing Mortal Kombat. They got Batista doing Mortal Kombat commercials with a whole bunch of people, and he's doing it. This is our time to shine and shit. Like, they had the AC6 commercial with Keith Urban. Like, that's the new way to do fucking commercial. Actually, it's not really new. I think they've done that before. Yeah, I don't need, like, that's fine. I don't need a trailer. I don't need trailers in a whole showcase to show me that your game isn't going to look the same as this trailer. When I woke up, her hair was gone, her eyelashes and nails were gone, her skin tone was gone. I had no idea where I was. Yeah, it's basically like that. When you get certain games and they look so amazing, I think Anthem did that to a lot of people. I think Anthem was that girl that you're talking about right there. Because Anthem pulled the wool on a lot of fucking people's eyes when they see a bunch of mechs flying around. You look like fucking different versions of Iron Man, and it looks better than Destiny. And then they get the game, and it's like, what the fuck is this? And the base game isn't even half of what Destiny was. And then they have a whole roadmap that they never followed until the game just fucking dies. Batista doing 90s game commercials. Yeah, right. So I don't see why anybody is surprised by that. Like, if you don't want to be disappointed, don't watch any more of these fucking don't watch any more of these showcases. Don't believe the fucking hype around it. Just let it fucking fall into your lap and see if you like it or not. See if you like it. Don't let somebody else tell you if you like it or not. Like, that's the quickest way. That, to me, that is the quickest way you can waste your fucking money. And word of mouth may be important, but damn, the word of mouth at certain places you gotta watch. Like, IGN is definitely one of those places. You gotta watch fanboys now on either side, Sony ponies and fucking Xbox. Like, you gotta watch all of that shit now, because you don't know who's got a mutual fucking grounds to anything.
Right, there's Fallout wasn't very good. Once people have decided,
Fallout was all right. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
Something's bad, it's bad.
Now, Bethesda has been saying that you can land anywhere you want on a planet, and it generates stuff around you. And people got it in their head that you could just go anywhere you wanted, whenever you wanted, and there would be absolutely no boundaries. They were mad when they found out that going from the surface of the planet to space was a cutscene instead of seamless, because trying to design that would take away from all the other systems. Now they're mad because when you land on the planet, we're being told you probably can't walk around the entire circumference of it. Okay. Apparently, when you land, the game generates a map around you of roughly 45 minutes of walking distance from your ship. And they're also mad that the space map is designed around you jumping around. So if you're like in the solar system next to Earth and you look over at Mars and go, I want to go to Mars, instead of taking the 3 months it would take to fly there, assuming we were in a good orbit, instead you just jump there instantaneously, because it's a video game.
I'm so glad he addressed that. I'm really glad he addressed that.
And you don't have 3 months to fly to Mars. You have...
Well, yeah, I mean, wait, so I don't think anybody's mad about that.
Yes, they are, dude. Don't fucking play like you haven't seen it. They are mad about that. I've just seen like 2 or 3 people say something about it.
Are people actually mad about that? Yeah, no shit, people. No shit, you're gonna teleport around. Who's saying this? Twitter? No.
It's so bizarre that people are mad that this game isn't something it was never saying it was going to be.
I think that really it's not about that. I think that people are just unhappy in general with the state of AAA gaming. And you combine that with a bad first...
But this year, though? What's the fucking excuse there, man? Like, this year, you've had nothing but good shit come out. We're going to say minus Spider-Man, though, because nobody gives a fuck about Spider-Man.
Starfield.
Oh, they probably do, but... I want to see... You know what I want to see? I want to see if the hype is as much as... if the hype is as big around Spider-Man as it is around this game. I want to see that. Do we think the hype stays? Does the hype grow for fucking Spider-Man once we get more towards the time? Because that's an October game, right?
And they're like trying to brace themselves for disappointment because gamers have had so many disappointments so many times. Somebody's gonna mod Planet Skyrim into this, and Todd will once again get away with it.
Bethesda says modders will be able to create their own planets and stories.
So you can play Skyrim inside of Starfield? Oh, God.
That feature is not coming out at launch.
A good explanation for Starfield's border controversy.
Folks are pretending to be mad at Bethesda.
Yeah, don't care. Star Citizen. Somebody is playing Star Citizen. Oh, it's Dr. Disrespect. Oh wow, dislikes the game, but they're doing a whole bunch of content on it. Fucking IGN is nasty. They'll fucking find something they hate and then milk the fuck out of that shit. The hell? Oh shit, I fucked up. Oh well. What the hell is going on with my mic? Yeah, Starfield or IGN is nasty. They'll find anything to fucking milk, like straight up. And they will milk the fuck out of that shit. Even if it's bad. Like, they don't give a fuck. Oh, hey, look, my video. A skeptical review. Who is this? Luke
Starfield aims to be the most ambitious and complex adventure Bethesda Game Studios has ever created. With over 1,000 planets to explore, dozens and dozens of star systems, and theoretically limitless areas to explore thanks to their new procedural tech, Starfield is no doubt a massive game. But does it actually shake the concerns that many of us skeptics had leading up to its launch? Namely, is it polished and bug-free? Does the procedural tech avoid the pitfalls of repetitive and reused locations? Can the creation engine actually provide the ambitious game a strong foundation? And does the lack of vehicles and in-atmosphere flight harm the exploration on the planet's surfaces? Well, as always, the answer is kind of complicated. After finishing the main story, completing the faction quest lines...
Now, I thought this guy was a PlayStation fanboy at first. I'm not gonna lie. Totally thought he was a Sony pony, but I don't know where he stands.
Customizing the crap out of my ships, building multiple bases, buying apartments, experimenting in new game.
It would be nice if he was mutual or neutral, but you never know these days.
Plus, and exploring random planets at length, I'm left conflicted. I think it is the best game that Bethesda Game Studios has ever made in a lot of ways. but in other ways, it feels painfully outdated, and it also feels like they've bitten off a lot more than they could be reasonably expected to chew. But before we get into details, it's crucial to understand what Starfield is and what it isn't, because I've seen online huge misrepresentations and overhyped expectations with this game. Again, this is why skepticism for any game is important, because it protects you from hype, which can lead to false expectations and people thinking that Starfield's going to be one thing when it's actually something very, very
Is that ironic? He's talking about being a skeptic and he's got the shirt that says proud skeptic on it. Oh, that's funny.
different. While it's perhaps no surprise to some that Starfield fails to compete with its contemporary space sims like No Man's Sky, Star Citizen, and Elite Dangerous, among others, for some I think this will come as a shock. Whether that's because of vague statements by Todd Howard and other developers, or vague marketing materials, or simple overhyped expectations, it's crucial to understand that Starfield is nothing like No Man's Sky or Star Citizen. Other than being set in space and them giving you a spaceship you can walk around in between fast traveling to different locations. Rather, it plays like a much bigger version of the Outer Worlds from Obsidian. Even down to little details like the change from the cinematic camera we had with Fallout.
That's a new one. That's actually a new take. That's an interesting one, in fact, I would argue.
Fallout 4 to the straight-on camera that we have in Starfield, something which I personally find to be a major downgrade. Starfield is not about exploring space freely as a space pirate or mercenary. It's about fast traveling to locations and having conversations with people. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's important to understand what this game actually is. Once you go into the game with leveled expectations, I think you can have a really good time. After about 15 hours, I was convinced that this was the best game that BGS has ever made. Better than any Elder Scrolls or Fallout game, and I mean that. The gunplay is significantly improved over what we saw in the trailers. The game also seems to be fairly well optimized on PC as long as you're running with FSR2 enabled, something you have to put up with since the frames are pretty low without it, and since there's no DLSS support for some nonsensical reason. The ship customization is super cool as well, and is probably my favorite part of the entire game. Stealing enemy ships is a great way to start this process, and since reselling them turns such a tiny profit, effectively prohibiting the...
Alright, hold on, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'm not gonna leave this playing. All right, here we go. Oh shit. I don't know which one I plugged in. Fuck. Oh, I did plug the right one in. Nice. Who's on? Dizam, that was a lot of fucking yeah. All these ponies are on this shit with the wow, that's crazy.
Practice of stealing ships just for resale, I often just stole a ship and then customized the crap out of them to turn them into a massive cargo ship or a small and agile fighter or a gigantic battleship. And again, this is probably my favorite part of the game. It's really intuitive, and I can only imagine how crazy the mods are going to get with this. The base building and settlement system is pretty cool too, though it should be noted you can only really get into it after 50 to 60 hours since it requires an insane number of resources. And most of those resources have to be collected on barren planets where you're simply running around with your scanner pulled up looking for small basketball-sized rock deposits to extract with your mining beam. If you are excited for the base building, I just need you to understand that it is a very, very late game system, and it requires you to really grind to get the materials necessary to actually engage with it. The voice acting and writing is really, really well done on the conversational level, though I do have some strong feelings about the main story and some of the broader themes, but we'll get into that later. And perhaps the most obvious point to bring up is the sheer scale of Starfield. It is massive, and you really have to admire Bethesda's commitment to ambitious game design. I know Todd gets a lot of flack because he tends to overpromise with his games, and whether that overpromising is born out of intentional deception, aiming to sell you on a game that he knows is not what he's promising, or if it's just excitement and vague language, I'm not really sure that's the point right now. The point is that these games are gigantic, and I have no doubt that some people are going to be playing Starfield for hundreds upon hundreds of hours, and will likely still have planets and systems left unexplored after all that time. The game really is that big. However, with all of these solid elements, you have to wonder if Bethesda bit off a bit more than they could chew. Were they too ambitious? Well, unfortunately, I feel they were. The more I played Starfield, the more I saw behind the curtain and realized that much of the scope and scale of this game is nothing more than an illusion. It's less and less magical the more you engage with it, since there are many problems that grow tiring the more you play. All of this is compounded with bugs and broken quests that are mostly concentrated in the late hours of the game. It's clear that they focused their polish on the first 20 hours or so, which makes sense because that's where most players will be spending their time. Especially considering the main quest, if you just sprint and do nothing else, can be completed in around 15 to 18 hours. Also, over half of the main story quest objectives are literally just fetch quests, where you're assigned to go collect a thing and bring it back to the Lodge, which is the center of operations for the Constellation. So we'll get into it more in a bit, but word of warning, if you were thinking that the main story is going to be compelling in this game, you are sorely mistaken. It's probably best to actually ignore the main story and focus on the side content, which some people will say, no duh, that's how I always play BGS games, but for other players, I just want to remind you, the main story here is pretty lackluster. But after the first 20 hours or so, many of the late stages of side quests, faction quests, and other parts of the game have numerous bugs, and one major faction quest line is so broken in my first save file, I straight up can't complete the faction quest line on that save. but more on that later. But it's not just bugs and weird behaviors from NPCs that bring Starfield's overall experience down the more you play. There are near constant load screens, though to be fair, they are pretty short so long as you're playing the game on a platform where it's loaded onto an SSD. Oftentimes the game feels as though it's been built with technology that's significantly behind what contemporary peers are able to pull off. The best example are these load screens, requiring the player to sit through one every time they travel between buildings, small zones within cities themselves, similar to the gated design of Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 3, which, bear in mind, are games that are over a decade old, and the same structure and style of area design is the same here as it was 10 years ago. There's also load screens every time you enter your ship, when you take off, when you travel from orbit to another star system, going from that star system down to the planet's surface, getting out of your ship down onto the planet's surface, and then from the planet's surface into a building. If you're wondering whether or not there is a load screen to do something in this game, the answer is probably yes. They are constant. Again, they're pretty quick. On my computer, they only usually lasted between 2.5 to 5 seconds, but it's still important to note that they are everywhere. Furthermore, when you land on a planet, you don't actually get to explore it freely. A few points of interest are put on the map, but if you run too far off course, sometimes only 1 kilometer away from a point of interest, and other times up to 4 kilometers away, you'll be treated to an invisible wall telling you to return to your ship.
See, that kind of sucks.
Actually give you planets to explore, as was promised by Todd Howard and Pete Hines in the lead up to the game's launch. It generates a small map each time you land that's built off of a seed from the given planet that you're landing on, and where on that planet you've selected to land, whether it's a pre-assigned landing location with a point of interest on it, or a random location that you choose. Simply put, it's an illusion of scale and freedom. For everyone that thought that Todd's promise of 1,000 planets to freely explore sounded too good to be true, you were painfully right to be skeptical. Though to be fair, some people won't consider this a big deal, but like I said, it grows all the more frustrating when you go out into the great unknown trying to explore like previous Bethesda games, only to be greeted with invisible walls reminding you that you're in a glorified fishbowl and not actually exploring a planet.
Yeah, they gave me a
I think it's very
pinata.
important to note that these tiles that are generated
Yep, they gave me a pinata.
for you to explore,
And I don't know how to hit it.
not contiguous. This means that if you land on a planet, see a big mountain in the distance that you want to reach, but it's just outside of the playable area, you can pull open the menu and try to jump to as close a tile as you possibly can within the game's map screen, but it won't matter since they aren't contiguous. Each of these individual tiles are generated with the planet's seed and then an individual seed based on where you plan on landing, whether it's next to a coast, in a mountainous area,
I don't know.
or a crater area, a desert, or a forest. These are not planets to explore. They're individual microbiomes that are based on a parent seed. It's like generating a tiny map in Minecraft every time you land your ship, and that might not be a big deal to you, but as far as I'm concerned, this is a far cry from the free exploration of a planet that was promised to us. However, the promise of exploring a planet was done in just vague enough a way that I think Bethesda will largely get away with this. And I have no doubt that in the comment section, you're probably going to see many people claiming that this isn't a big deal and it's just a different interpretation of what it means to explore a planet. However, I have to point out that other games that are contemporaries in this very same genre that Bethesda has placed themselves within have achieved contiguous planet exploration with very little effort involved. But frankly, whether or not you consider this to be a big deal, and you might not, you might be fully embracing the procedural generation and thinking, well, I never was gonna just run in a straight line and try to run to the ocean on the other side of the planet, so doesn't matter to me. That's fine if that's your opinion. Everybody is allowed to have one. It's totally, totally fine if it doesn't bug you. But I do think it's important to note and be very, very clear about this. There is simply no debate here that this is simply inferior to how other contemporary games handle this type of procedural generation. Even a 7-year-old version of No Man's Sky before any fixes or patches avoided these constant load screens and lack of free exploration on a planet. Again, like I said at the top, Starfield is not trying to be No Man's Sky, and that's cool, but they need to understand that when you give players a ship, the option to explore over 1,000 planets, ship customization, and seemingly endless opportunities to explore on a planet's surface, you have to understand that players are going to hear that and inevitably want to compare it to other games that promise the same things and frankly do it better. No, Starfield is not trying to be No Man's Sky, but it will be compared to it because they're promising similar things. And whether or not the way Starfield approaches it bugs you or disappoints you doesn't really matter, because it is objectively the case that Starfield's technology is significantly inferior to what games were doing close to a decade ago. But moving on, there are also many broken and bugged quests, damaged to varying degrees, again mostly focused in the later portions of the game. I have no doubt you'll see a lot of reviewers praising the polish of this game, especially if they've only put in 20-30 hours or so. I ran into most of my problems at the 40-50-60 hour mark the further into the game I got, and I don't know if that's because they just were not polishing as much, or if the rose-tinted glasses kind of fell off and I started to see these things I previously was ignoring. I'm not sure.
All right, hold on, because if you're a skeptic, then you don't have rose-tinted glasses on. You're going into this objectively as possible at that point. And if you're a skeptic, then I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Is that the more I played, the more of these I saw in increasing density and with increased severity. Some quests just have broken objective markers that may point you towards your ship when you actually need to go into a building in the other direction. This isn't a big deal because especially if you pull up your scanner, little arrows appear on the floor and point you to where the true objective is. I have no doubt that this will be patched out in the future, and maybe it's going to be fixed with the day one patch. I know Bethesda has said that they are working on many fixes, though they didn't specifically note this one to me, but I would not be shocked at all if this gets remedied with time. Other quests are glitched in a much more severe way. There were multiple times when I saw NPCs I was tasked with speaking with simply float into the sky and outside of the spaceship we were inside of. And this causes the NPC to clip outside into a different zone, so then the game thinks that they are both out in space but also still in this room. And this entirely breaks the quest. You can't get to the person to engage in a conversation, and the game for whatever reason doesn't see the issue with this character being a kilometer away floating around in space as the space station floats around the planet. I ran into this with the Crimson Fleet faction questline, one of the biggest questlines in the game, and frankly one that I think is way better than the main story. However, in my first save file, I just can't complete this quest. He glitched outside of the space station and I can't get him to come back inside. I went back, loaded to a previous save about 45 minutes earlier, tried to catch up, and when I reached the same point, he floated out of the space station again. And even after dozens of hours doing other stuff, finishing the main story and completing other activities, I tried to return and he was still floating out in space somewhere.
That's the spooky spot. Oh, that's right. I get the birthday.
Just totally broken. However, when I made another game and I went and I tried that same questline, I was able to complete it because he never floated out of the ship. So your mileage on these types of glitches may vary. I have no idea what's causing it. I did send this information and the clips to BGS. We will see if they fix it. But as far as I'm concerned, it's just totally unacceptable that anybody might run into the situation where they will miss out on what is, in many ways, the best quest line, as far as I'm concerned, in the game, simply because of a bug like this. Now listen, I know I said at the top that this game is actually really polished, especially for a BGS game, but that's not saying a lot. I mean, that's kind of the point. A really polished BGS game is still broken for a lot of other companies. Like a polished BGS game for Rockstar would be totally unacceptable. But I do want to give them some credit here. It is significantly improved over what we've seen with like Fallout 4. Even Skyrim had a lot more broken stuff at launch, so I think they do deserve some credit for improving the player experience. But it's important to note that this is far from a perfectly polished game, and there are still a lot of really weird things that happen. There are characters that don't engage in conversations properly. There are other guys clipping through walls during combat sequences.
That's hilarious.
Objects that simply aren't. There are people that don't stand correctly within objects. Ships that spin uncontrollably and have their physics just totally break. Weird shadow glitches, which I think are related to volumetric lighting. I have no idea what's going on here though. Characters that are super shaky and glitch out during conversations, which actually made me motion sick at one point. There were times when I got caught
Oh,
between
now
the
you're
seat
just
of
being
my
dramatic.
spaceship and the wall, meaning I couldn't move and had to sit back
You're just
down
being
and stand
ultra
back up to
dramatic.
be able to get out from
It gave me motion
Really
sickness.
weird and really stupid. There's other cases where security guards will completely lose interest in you if you're in a city like Neon, seemingly for no reason, just because you passed over some arbitrary line. It's frankly really strange. They can see you, they can look at you, but because you walked 2 feet forward, they now disengage and aren't interested in you. It's
Why are we shot? Hold on.
kind of tears you out of any immersion you were feeling. There are soft blocks where objectives just frankly break.
Why are we shocked by any of that? Like, this is what you should expect from a Bethesda game, man. Like, I thought that's what we would look forward to. Like, you know how many of the glitches in Bethesda games are meme worthy and people still make videos on them to this day? And they're actually pretty fucking funny. So I don't know why people are so shocked by this. Like, this has been Bethesda's thing for a long time.
Fake companions that freak out when you try to talk to them. Of course, there are the funny glitches like you would expect from Bethesda Game Studios, such as this guy that clipped into a ceiling. And it kind of looks like he's pleasuring himself. This was just funny. Oh, and there was this one, which I won't go into too much detail as to the situation for sake of spoilers, but you can actually see null objects visible on screen. These are used to like anchor other objects in animation sets, and normally these things are cold and are not visible to the player, but are visible to the developers. For some reason, though, I can see them, and I've never had this happen before in a BGS game, so I have no idea what's causing it, but I thought it was kind of fun. It was like seeing how the sausage is made. There's other cases where guards just randomly drop dead when you approach them.
Wow. I'm gonna shut up.
No idea
I'm gonna
what
shut
could
up.
be causing this. One that I found particularly annoying was that the game would consistently think I was still in combat even when I wasn't. I could run 2 kilometers out of the way. There's nobody still in this area. I potentially wasn't even fighting anybody to begin with because it happened sometimes when I just took my weapon out in the middle of nowhere. But the game would think that I was in combat and as a result not allow me to fast travel because you can't fast travel while engaged in combat, which would effectively lock me in place until I got back to my ship, climbed in, and then fast traveled from my ship out into the atmosphere. And with the game's over-reliance on fast travel, so much so that in the scanner, if you look at your ship, you are greeted with a prompt to fast travel to it, since they knew you would just run a kilometer or 2 away from your ship and then need to fast travel back since there's nothing between you and the ship to find. It grew really frustrating to run into these glitches where I can't just fast travel back to my ship and instead I have to run on foot for 10 minutes to get back there so that I can force the game to behave properly. But perhaps the most damning thing with all of Starfield is that the game's procedural engine fails to provide a truly unique encounter or point of interest every time. In my first 20 hours with the game, I was using a spreadsheet because, shout out to Bethesda, they gave us review codes a full 2 weeks ahead of time, which allowed me to do a lot more careful testing than I normally would be able to do for a review. In those first 20 hours of the game, I saw multiple locations, such as the abandoned mining outpost, the abandoned research center, the abandoned shipyard, the research station, and many more, over 6 times a piece. Copy and pasted precisely, even down to enemy placement and in some cases the loot. And in this spreadsheet, I actually wrote down the different locations, some of which I think would classify as spoilers, so I won't share them directly. But the first location I saw 7 times in my first 20 hours of gameplay.
Wow.
The next one I saw 3 times. The next one 8 times. Next one 7. The next one 5. And the next one 4 times. So many of these locations and points of interest are heavily recycled. I almost threw the damn thing. Heavily recycled over and over and over again. You will see many of them the same exact way, the same exact alignment, in the same environment, on totally different planets, and sometimes they're even recycled into the main story. I'm not joking. Early in the game, I traveled to an abandoned mine and cleared it out. It was a pretty cool encounter with lots of combat, and the mine was very large as well, which was extra cool. Down in the depths of the mine, I found an area where they had been digging and had unearthed some some weird dinosaur alien looking skull. It was just laying in the ground at the very end of one of their mining tunnels, and it had seemingly been the cause of their halted excavations. And I thought this was so cool, and
I will say, out of all
praise it as this cool environment.
Out of everybody, this guy is probably like one of the most organized dudes to do a review. Like, he's like breaking this shit down. Like, this is probably one of the most detailed, the more detailed reviews that I've seen. The funny part about this is a 27-minute video, and I'm very surprised he was actually able to get this much done. But I mean, you never know. Some people's work ethic and focus are just amazing. So like the fact that he had a spreadsheet for all of the stuff that he caught, like all of the things that he saw that were repeat assets. Like, that's something I've never seen in a review before. Like, that's just me personally. Like, maybe you all have seen it, but I have never seen that before. Whoops.
Environmental storytelling piece that Bethesda Game Studios is so well known for. It's like these miners were digging in here, found this skull, and then had to halt all operations because they had discovered something really important. And that eventually led to the mine being abandoned, and therefore the pirates taking it over. What I didn't realize was that I would see this exact same mine with the exact same alien dinosaur skull in the exact same place 4 different times before I hit that 20-hour mark. Everything from the placement of the skull to the enemy placement and even the loot within containers seemed to be directly copy and pasted. And that's just one example. There was also this science lab that I found sitting next to a swampy pool of poisonous gas, and I thought it was pretty cool looking, so I made a note of it to praise how cool it was that they dynamically placed this science lab studying toxic elements next to this toxic pool on this planet that just so happened to have a lot of toxic elements. However, just 2 hours and 15 minutes in-game later, I encountered the exact same thing on a different planet as part of a main story mission. The exact same poison bog and the exact same building with precisely the same enemy placement, but this time it was part of a main story mission instead of a dynamically placed encounter. I thought I was taking crazy pills. I had seen these things exactly the same, and it was like this weird deja vu where you're like, I swear I've done this already. I swear. But sure enough, you have. It's just you did it in a different place and it was copy and pasted over here. And again, these are just 2 individual specific examples. I have literally dozens of these examples. Maybe if you get really high while playing Starfield, you won't notice these or remember that you've already seen these encounters before. But for me, it created the feeling, like I said, that I was going absolutely insane. All while I'm exploring these locations, I'm constantly overwhelmed with this sense of deja vu that is painfully uncomfortable, feeling as though I've already been here and done this because frankly I have. And I don't love saying I told you so, but I told you so. I was trying to encourage everybody to be very skeptical of the promise that there would be over 1,000 planets with dynamically placed points of interest, and everybody that was thinking critically was going, how do you do that and not just have a bunch of repeated stuff? Isn't that going to get boring? Isn't that going to get tedious where you just do the same thing over and over again?
That is extremely true.
Were warranted. After 65 hours in the game, I have dozens upon dozens of examples of these copy and pasted encounters and points of interest. If somebody is a completionist and hopes to complete all 1,000 planets, they are going to be shocked at just how many times they will see the same thing over and over again. And speaking of those 1,000 planets, it's also important to note that many of those are gas giants like Jupiter or Uranus, meaning that you can't actually land on them. Often they'll have small moons that are completely barren, and it also seems that Bethesda is counting those moons as planets in their 1,000 planet number. Just something to keep in mind because this certainly inflates the number. But with all of this, I just want to bring us back before we tie this up, because I have notes literally long enough for me to do a 3-hour critique of this game, and that's what we're gonna do. But that's not what this video is supposed to be. This is a review, so we're trying to give you enough information to know what the game is like so that you know what you're getting into if you decide to buy it or download it. I've spent this video going through a lot of the things I like about Starfield and a lot of the things I really don't like. And I've tried very hard to show you actual footage to back up these points so that it's clear that these are actual problems we encountered during the review process. I have no idea what other people are going to score this game at or how they're going to review it. But my position and stance is that I should give you all of the information you need to make an informed decision, and you can come to the conclusion yourself. In my opinion, Starfield is a really fun game, and there's a lot here to grind out and have a good time with. I have no doubt people are going to be playing this game for years and years and years and still be discovering new things in different planets and biomes. One of my favorite things that I haven't touched on yet that has consistently entertained me is that every once in a while when you fast travel to a planet, before fast traveling down onto the planet's surface, you get these dynamic encounters with different people, some of which you might have seen earlier in the story. For example, at one point I screwed over this guy as part of a faction quest line and he was super pissed at me. So he disappeared and said, "I'll get you back." And 10 hours in-game later, I ran into that guy trying to jump me with a bunch of his friends as I was outside of a planet ready to go land on its surface. They tried to shoot me out of the sky. I thought that was super cool. And that's where I think Starfield really excels, is in those dynamic encounters that are original. Unfortunately, though, there's just a lot of stuff that isn't original that's copy and pasted all over the place. But other systems like the base building, the ship flying and combat, the side quests, the faction quests, the gunplay, the weapon customization, and all of the other systems I haven't even touched on are ripe for the plucking. There is lots to do here and a lot of fun to be had. But listen, BGS is not magical, okay? It's still a Bethesda Game Studios title. It still has weird bugs and glitches. The people all look like sisters and brothers. It's a Bethesda game, and that's okay. It's just not going to be the second coming of God Howard. It's a solid game. It's not what I would consider a masterpiece, but I think there's a lot of fun to be had with it. And as far as I'm concerned, as a Game Pass title, day 1, or I guess day 5, depending on how you look at it, I think it is a no-brainer. I know a lot of the time in these reviews, it's really easy to just fixate on the negative, because I can say I love the combat. I think the gunplay is way improved over what we've seen before. I think it works really well. And I can say all of that, but what people are going to remember is me tearing the game a new one for all of the bugs and the copy and pasted content,
which is very true.
Is fair as well. So in conclusion, I think Starfield is a solid game that was shooting for the stars, but it never really leaves orbit. It's still an amazing accomplishment and something that they should be very, very proud of, but it's not the accomplishment that they were hoping to achieve. But nonetheless, there's a ton of fun to be had here, and I have no doubt that this game is worth enjoying and playing, especially if you can get it on Game Pass for a deal or for no added cost if you're already a subscriber.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with them on certain aspects. Like, we should have known there was going to be a lot of repeat things to do. Like, I don't think that should be a shock at all to anybody. Which is weird to me that it is. This video came out like months ago. Holy shit, my mic is going crazy right now. There's not too much going on with it at the moment, though. So this guy is just here finding exploits.
Okay, this is the Red Mile. It's like in a big crater. It's kind of cool. Oh, it says last chance. Oh, I see. So this is where you do the run from.
Yeah, they're just finding exploits in the live form.
Okay, then.
I vote Mario time. Nah, I'm gonna probably get off of here because, like I said, my mic is starting to act up for some reason. I gotta fix that. I gotta eat something. I gotta smoke something. Oh no, I'm just tired of this fucking industry. There's just little to no standards. Like, we could say it's subjective because it is. It is ultimately subjective. It's meant to be subjective. All forms of entertainment are meant to be subjective. But there is a time where we all gotta look at the facts and call a spade a fucking spade. spade. And the truth of the matter is the spade is this. I'm going to end this on this note. The issue that we're having when it comes to Starfield is that it's being very hyped by the Xbox community. Here's a fun fact. The Xbox, Microsoft, and Sony are going through similar things in two totally different ways. The two totally different ways that they're going through things, the two similar ways, the same thing that they're going through is the lack thereof of games. And so the difference between the two is that Sony has the exclusives. The problem is that their exclusives are all like stretched apart, like they're releasing 2 set games a year especially since this new generation started, right? Whereas like Microsoft hasn't dropped like a good game in a while. And so it's very easy for both sides to get really overhyped when something is good, when they think something is good and it's really not. They think they're going to get the W because they see like here, and I'm going to throw in my hot take with this really fast. And I know I'm going to catch shit for it. I don't give a fuck. When like a God of War, when they hear something like God of War, it's automatically good. And God of War Ragnarok was garbage to me. Sorry to say, it was garbage. I did not enjoy it. It's not something that could hold my attention. It doesn't have any replayability. It's just not good enough to have even been in the runner-up, especially not being released like a month to 2 weeks before Game Awards and being nominated already. I disagree with that heavily. I think that Sony relies way too much on its gunship titles and doesn't think to utilize its studios to create new IPs, and in turn they have gotten just as lazy as Microsoft is in making all these acquirements of companies. And Microsoft's biggest issue is that they have the right vision to move the game industry forward, and they have no fucking games to show for it that would actually make that fucking appealing. And so what the issue is now is that we have two companies that are trying to consolidate the industry. We have Sony ponies on one end backing up Sony. You have Xbox on the Microsoft end backing them up, and basically they're uttering the same sentiment. They're basically saying it's garbage for Sony says it's garbage for Microsoft to try and make an acquirement when Sony has done a temporary purchase of acquirements in the past few years, especially when it comes to Call of Duty and Destiny. So Bungie belongs over at Sony. They might as well have. And Microsoft basically saying, well, it's bad for Sony to acquire timed exclusivity, and Microsoft is over here buying up Bethesda and trying to acquire Activision. And all in turn, what they're both offering is the bare fucking minimum, and we get hyped for that shit every fucking time, and it's annoying as fuck. It is genuinely stupid as hell to fucking get hype for just one fucking project in a year when they have made so many acquirements that they could be dropping hit after hit after hit, and that's on both sides. They could be dropping hit after hit after hit. Sony's problem with their exclusives is that they try to be too damn cinematic with their shit. And the least cinematic game that they come out with in the last couple of years is Returnal. And that's saying a lot, because that's all they ever do is fucking, all they ever do now is just theatrics. And Microsoft, with all of the acquirements that they made, why haven't they had more games to make Game Pass look more appealing? I just went through Game Pass. This is the first time. Today was the first time I ever turned on my Xbox in the last year. And it is amazing to me that fucking shit still looks the same. They changed every other thing on there in the layout as far as the menu goes, but the Game Pass looks exactly the same, minus like Starfield being in there, and a couple of other games that they try to showcase as like Xbox, the equivalent of Xbox Gold games, and it just looks the same. And so what I'm basically saying is that both sides, like Sony's mantra is, we'll get you hooked with the exclusives, and then we'll sell you the what did I say earlier? They'll sell you the we'll sell you the overpriced gear, like all the extra shit, the extra gear, and now they're trying to oversell the streaming service. And so we're getting hype over the bare minimum. Hey, guess what? Nobody's talking about Horizon Forbidden West anymore either. You want to know something? Is that now these games are starting to be less impactful, and what we have now is it's the third party AAA space trying to carry the industry on its back. Where's the praise for From Software? They may not always make game of the year games, but they make fucking games, and they have a system in place. Nintendo always has, they may not make the games that you like, but they always have a system in place. Microsoft and Sony have this play it safe nature where they love to fucking they love to show you a promise on a game, but they never like to deliver. They never like to set a delivery date, and they never like to deliver all the way when it comes to certain aspects. Like, I would argue that Sony delivers more because they have to when it comes to theatrics, but they don't deliver as far as like the timelines when they need to. And Microsoft just doesn't know what a fucking timeline is. So whenever they deliver, it's just like it's whenever you get the game, it's just whenever you get the game, and you just have to wait. Whereas like Nintendo, 9 times out of 10 is gonna have a release date. They may have a couple where they say, you know, it's coming out next summer because they're still working on something, but you know it's gonna come, and you know they're not gonna have to push it back. Like they like Tears of the Kingdom is a very good example of this, where they knew what they had. It was ready a year ago. They never really gave you a date on it, and they never really got your hopes up to show you. They showed you enough to get you hooked into and make you wonder what's actually going to be happening, and then they saved the theatrical trailer for later. And I think that's one of the things that Nintendo has mastered. I think it's one of the things that Kojima tries to do too. I just think he has the wrong machines backing him, and I think at this point he should be running his own studios. He has his own studios, and he should be running it because he's got 30 plus years in the game, and he has the experience. I'd love to see more Kojima games. And you see what happened when Konami parted ways with him. Like, that was probably the biggest mistake that Konami could ever make, because if they would have kept Kojima there, they would have Silent Hill wouldn't be the same, and Silent Hill would probably be more popular than fucking I would argue more popular than Resident Evil at the moment, because whatever lightning in a bottle that Kojima caught in that moment, they should have kept that shit, no matter what the fucking whatever the disagreement was. It's and so you have these AAAs, the people in the AAA space making these biggest mistakes, like Microsoft and Sony making all the wrong moves at the moment. Like, Microsoft has already solidified itself as a cloud holder. Like, it is the holder of cloud, well, for now, and they have solidified that they are moving forward. They have created a streaming service that works. So then why not put games on there to attract more people? Because that's the only way that you're going to get more people. You can't keep relying on the back. You can't keep relying on the third parties to keep bringing you games to your system and hope to God that people want to drift to your system. That's not how this works. Like, you have to have some kind of identity. It's one of those deals where I look at Sony, I know their identity. It's just they don't put their identity out enough because they don't have a proper schedule to work out with. Whereas Microsoft, I don't even know what their identity is now. Their identity used to be Master Chief, and then I think they had another title or something that was like their mascot, but that's it. They never really, like, after a certain point, like, they just kind of lost their identity to me. Like, it was after the 360, actually. They lost their identity somewhere between the head change, who's in charge, When they changed who was in charge, they lost their identity. And so we've been getting the bare minimum for at least from Microsoft, we've been getting the bare minimum for at least 10 years. From Sony, we've been getting the bare minimum probably for the last 5-6 years, because they already solidified their lead. So why not get comfortable, right? They could have been on PC. They could have been doing the streaming service long before Microsoft. If they were so ahead and they had all the revenue in the world, they could have started that, and they didn't. So at that point, they're now playing catch up on this streaming stuff, but while their console is ahead. But Microsoft's goal is no longer to be a console. And so to which I say, Microsoft, if you're going to be a streaming service, then just be that. Be a streaming service. Don't fucking try to sell me on your console and all these other devices, because basically what you're doing is you're pulling a Sony. We don't need your devices if you're just going to be a streaming service, then just go be that. Just put yourself on every device like you had planned on with xCloud. Don't sell the rights of an xCloud game to Ubisoft. Like, keep going forward with your plan to be more than a console, and if that's what you're gonna be. But don't sit there and act like good games don't sell. Don't sit there and act like you don't need an identity. And for me personally, I just don't believe in getting hype for any of the titles that Bethesda / Microsoft or Sony even puts out, because I already know it's going to be the wash, rinse, repeat shit that you get from Sony exclusives normally now, the post-apocalyptic shit with the kids next to you now, because that's basically what they've been delivering for the last decade. And when it comes to Microsoft, I'm going to get some pandering bullshit that they normally do, because they pander in Starfield too. Don't think that they don't. You got to actually look at it. You got to actually look through the game. They do pander in Starfield. You're gonna get that one game that they hype. They hyped up Redfield. They hyped up Redfall 2. Guess what? If you enjoy Starfield, you enjoy Starfield. I will say this: at least it's a complete game. It looks pretty solid graphics wise. There are glitches and shit, but me personally, I can't get hyped for it. Now, if you want, and it's not a game for me to review. It's not a game that I think that anybody can review. I think that you can look at the bugs and shit like that. I just think it's really hard to actually be able to have to even recommend to either recommend or not recommend this particular game, because I think that honestly people from all sides should either try it or avoid it, because it's gonna be it's your choice at this moment. It's just too hard to review a game this large. Even the dude that we just watched said that game, he has like 3 hours of notes taken to make he can make a 3-hour video of a long list of notes that he's taken on the things that he's found in the game. Like, that's how detailed, and that's not something that you get to often in a review either. The one thing that I think that he is going to miss though in that video is the fact that everybody has different play styles, and that's where I say, like, to be hype over this game, it's just feeding the fuel to a burning dumpster fire when it comes to Microsoft. Like, I have heard this sentiment several times where Todd Howard promises more things than he actually delivers. And the fact of the matter is that that's a lot of companies. That's not just Todd Howard. That's not just Phil Spencer. That's not just Jim Ryan. That is a lot of fucking companies in the game industry as of now. And I think we need to revamp. We need to change how we do reviews. We need to change who reviews games. We need to fucking find a system that's not so safe. We need to make it to where it's not where it's not so safe to not have an actual opinion about a fucking game. We need to have standards for this unique form of gaming. We can't allow the journals to control the fucking effort. We need to figure out a way to convince like a Jeff Keighley to fucking stand aside and let the community figure out what it actually wants. instead of being the face of always trying to be the face of a fucking showcase. Like, it just doesn't make sense to have that. Like, there's so many things wrong in the industry right now, and I think Starfield's gonna be a big fucking push into which direction we go to, where we go to moving forward in this industry. I think it's definitely going to be one of those deals where Starfield's impact may not leave you with the impact that you think it does. It's not going to be a gameplay impact thing. Starfield is going to be leave an impact of whether or not we do things the same way in the games industry. It's going to make you look at how game journalism is done. It's going to make you look at how games are made. It's going to make you look at it's gonna make you look at what's promised. It may make you look at the showcases a little bit differently now. It's gonna be a whole, I think, and I'm making a bold claim, it's gonna be a shift in the gaming space that is going to be so big because of this game, because of the hype, because of everything that was promised, and because of how many games have come out this year, and because of who's delivering it. So with that being said, use critical thought. Don't fucking fall for the hype on either side. Even as much as I can't stand fanboys, to the fanboys, don't fall for the hype on either side, because they don't give a fuck about you. They are looking to get your money, and it is your choice of whether or not you can spend it. But that being said, I love games and I love the games industry, but there's a lot that needs to fucking change. And with that being said, I'm a be out. I appreciate everybody for joining me. I thank each and every one of you for I thank you for the subs. I thank you for the conversation. I hope that the industry does do better at the end of the day. I hope that we get to a place where games journalism doesn't look so fucking phony. Like, I think we need a revamp. We need to gut out the industry and start anew. I think that's what needs to happen. And I could be wrong, but that's just my thoughts. So I'll see you all later. You take it easy. Peace.